Today we only have one agenda item. But first, as a reminder to members on the committee, CB4 has a hybrid meeting policy you can find on our website. Nellie provides the policy in the email we received about the meeting. Essentially, there needs to be an in-person quorum, and if you are going to be virtual, just keep your cameras on. To the attendees of the meeting, hello, my name is Maria Ortiz. I'm co-chair of this committee. And my co-chair right here is Joe Restuccia. If you are not signed up to receive the CB4 announcements and agenda items, you can sign up on our website. If this is your first meeting, this meeting is being live streamed on YouTube. It's being recorded. It's going to live there forever. During the meeting, normally what happens is there's a presentation, there's a committee discussion, then attendees. So members from the public will speak and ask questions, and then we come back to committee. And sometimes we decide to write a letter that's voted at the next full board meeting, which is the first Wednesday of the month. And that is it. Do we want to go around the table and do some quick introductions? I'm Marie Ortiz.
Joe Restuccia, committee co-chair.
Roberta Barnett, committee member. Katie Stokes, committee member.
Kevin Collins, committee member.
Pete Diaz, committee member.
Paul Ames, public member.
We also have Dolores Rubin, committee member, who just stepped out of the room. She'll be right back in. And online we have Rachel. Oh, she put herself back on mute. Rachel or Travis, whoever. Let's.
Travis Rogers, public member of HHS.
Rachel Lee, committee member. Can you all hear me?
Yes, you can. And the cool thing to say is triple HS, Travis, triple H.
We should also note we have members from our land use committees here tonight, also attending.
Paul Devlin from Host Kitchen Land Use and Chelsea Land Use.
Brian Weber, public member, House Kitchen Land Use.
Randy Miller, member of House Kitchen Land Use.
And Laura Rubin on both committees, HHS and.
Land use.
So she's the coolest one here.
Says you.
So, tonight we're
Oh,
reviewing.
wait,
Right.
oh, never mind. Carrie had her hand up, but never mind. Okay. Go ahead, Joe.
So tonight we have, we're reviewing the affordable housing plan, and we're looking at updates to it. And I have an agenda to go through that will bring us to certain areas of it, because certain things are actually discussion and changes versus just sort of updates portion that was done before. So Nellie, if you can go to, if you can bring up the plan.
Joe, you want the PowerPoint or that single document?
The PowerPoint.
Okay.
Your direction is Carrie Keenan, is co-chair of the Land Use.
Oh,
Bring forward the money.
is she still here? Yes, well, the former, yeah, the former chair.
They all left us.
Oh, I figured they were gonna pass it around.
Oh.
Anybody else?
Oh, yeah, Chelsea, member, he's the co-chair of Chelsea. Yeah.
No,
Marty is not.
no, Marty's from deputy.
Marty and Carrie are members of Chelsea Land Use.
So
Thank you.
Nellie, if you can bring over both Carrie and Marty to the main portion of the committee, they can participate.
And we also have Rodney on.
Rodney's Chelsea.
Rodney also is on Chelsea Land Use, so you can bring him over.
Okay, give me 1 second to find them all.
Yep, understood. Just tell me when you're ready, okay?
Okay, I think they all made it over.
Okay, now Nellie, I'm gonna be referring to the page numbers that are on the document on the bottom right-hand corner. Okay? So
Okay,
can you go to page 39, please?
39?
Just orient everybody. Remember, this document has a whole preamble, a lot of text information. We're looking at the slides, which is the individual site-by-site information and the actions that we have supported before, or the construction that's happened, or construction of the pipeline. You don't seem to see, yeah, there we go, 39, right. Sorry, go back one. Go back one page, yeah. So this map is overall of the whole community board, but to look at it, we gotta split it into two maps on the various sites so you can see where they are. Next page. Remember how this is set up. There are specific locations, we know what it is, and then there's a page for each building. Very little has changed on this section. This is,
Right, but
yes, go ahead.
actually, yeah. So this is 2015, 2019. I was wondering, I mean, we're not obviously changing anything.
Oh, no, there's a whole other section now.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, like,
These were things that were proposed in the affordable housing plan
mhm,
and that have been actually executed
mhm.
over time.
So it's sort of like a little historical review, but I was wondering, like, why isn't that in the appendix? If the plan is supposed to be like, this is stuff we're working on now, or is proposed going
The
forward?
plan isn't just what's, in the plan, things start at, here's a proposal, here's something in a pipeline, here's something in development, here's something under construction, here's something actually executed. So what we've shown in this plan is, these are things that we proposed many years ago. And the summary at the end is showing how much has been either completed, in construction, in development, in the pipeline. And you can see over the iterations of the plan that things move up through there and actually demonstrates that the community board's overall plan has begun to be implemented.
Okay. But presumably all this stuff in 2015, 2019,
Right,
we're not.
I'm about to skip right over it.
It's like, why are we-
No. So what I have in front of me is a little like a crib notes agenda. So this first section, all I want you to note is that we broke it up into two slides because so much has happened, we can only include it on one map. So, yes, Stanford.
Like, are these like, site rezonings, or are these things that were allowed because of changes that rezoned a larger area and we probably would have been optimal?
Every one of these was, we did either combination, either individual sites or maybe zoning.
But there were ULURPs that.
Yeah, they're all ULURPs.
Every single
Yeah.
one of these.
Okay, I'd be super curious, I don't know if there's a lot, but I'd be super curious, like how many things have been built as of right? And that might not put a lot of map.
Nothing on
Let's
this,
just clarify, nothing on this map.
nothing on this map was built as of right, it was all resulting from a zoning change that we supported.
Okay,
By the way, those zoning changes go from area-wide zoning changes to site-specific zoning changes, or in the case of some site-specific text changes that had, in other words, there was some public action that got this to happen.
yeah, and some of the area where we're going may still yield further changes.
Exactly, yeah, something's zoned, but you can't build what you want, you gotta figure out how to do it. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. This is again, 2015, 2019. And now that takes us through 2019. Next. No, go all the way through, Nellie, to the 2020. I'll tell you what page. I'm gonna apologize. Go to page 58. Now you'll see on this map how the number of sites declines dramatically from the prior period, because that's after the major rezoning happened. So there was a rush to do a lot of work and a lot of folks got on the ground. Next page. So here we have buildings that were done recently, and I can give you some flavor of them, right? I want to skip to the 6th Street building, come back down a sec. 312 West 43rd Street, that required a special permit for height, because it is a split lot coming from 42nd Street high density zone to a lower density zone in the mid block. 280 West 24th Street, that was that odd program called the FASH,
Yes,
remember?
yes, the precursor to UAP.
A precursor to
Well,
the senior thing.
Yes, there's the
Well, the
senior.
Sarah, but like,
No,
but
no, right, no, you're
the PFAS, we only had one ever senior housing development under the old
Correct.
program called PFAS and it's not.
Wait, that's what avenue again?
That's 23rd and 8th.
Eight. Oh, eight.
Yeah, so 23rd and 8th were
That's where the Dwayne Reed was.
no,
The
the,
two-story,
the,
sports,
Yes.
yeah, that's right.
yeah,
But it was the very low,
New York Sports and the ground floor was like that was the Woolworths for many years, okay? The next one, 606 West 30th Street, that was a rezoning of part of a block. 601 West 29th Street, that was companion rezoning that happened. And then 550 10th Avenue was a result of the Hudson Yards rezoning. It was a very complex project that involved a Covenant House on site, the Covenant House making a deal to move their main corporate office and their New York office into the location.
it's their international headquarters.
Yes, international headquarters and also. So, and that was, we dealt with that greatly, great deal because there was a landmark eligible library in the site. So,
Carnegie.
yeah, one of the only few Carnegie libraries ever demolished. So we should go through page down, Nelly. Page 50, page 60. So this is the PFAS building, and that is a building that is actually functioning, has opened and has senior units in it. And it had units at different levels entirely. Different AMI levels, sorry. Handled by this committee. Page down, please. 601 West 29th Street went both to the Chelsea Land Use Committee for the rezoning, and they came here for the inclusionary housing plan. And we worked heavily with the developer and got a very good range of income bands in that building. Next, page 62, 606 West 30th Street. Again, much smaller building, worked with Chelsea Land Use and with this committee. And to note, this was also had a transfer of Hudson River Park development rights. And we had a big back and forth and did a great accomplishment that the trust at that point was led by an individual who undervalued the development rights, and our work and our intervention got a higher price per square foot for the development rights. Right. Yeah. Now, go to the next one, Ellie. This is where I just spoke to Roberta about something. We have to figure out a different category here. We have a number of buildings that were already built, but then took advantage of a specific state program to add additional affordable units in. It doesn't quite fit here, because it's not like these were constructed at that point. They made a certain number. So that's a much larger building. It has many more affordable apartments and was completed a long time ago. So Roberta's gonna do some research on this to figure out exactly what was that state program, because there's about 6 or 7 of these that came to pass in the last like 3 or 4 years.
But this is done.
Yes,
I mean, there's affordable housing in there.
there was affordable housing already, but it went from 20% to 25% in the last 5 years.
Okay,
And I
I
don't-
guess my question is, but like there's, but we don't have to change this slide in particular.
No,
It's
no,
like
we
a
have
category.
to modify, yeah, different right. We should also note there were, just for information's sake, there were X number of units already affordable. Here's what it is, the additional ones. Next one, 312 West 43rd. That again was a rezoning, a special permit for a mid-block on West 43rd, between 8th and 9th, handled by this committee for inclusionary and handled by health and land use for the special permit. And then 550 10th Avenue is the one we talked about, which is the Covenant House site between 40th and 41st Streets on 10th Avenue, on the east side of 10th Avenue, and that has recently been completed. It's actually called the Mayberry. And that is being rented.
It just opened.
Yeah, just opened.
In like November or December.
Correct. That's the one where the crane caught on fire.
Oh, yes, that's right. And
So you can see on the units that, go to the next slide, Neil. The big change that during this period of time, although it's very large in terms of general production, 2,483 units, of which 576 were permanently affordable. And I can just give you a reference for the prior 5-year period, which was extraordinary. that was 7,169 units, 71,790 units were permanently affordable.
And that percentage from that period?
The percentage was 25%, this is 23%. But I think it's a good feel of like, that zoning happened, here's what that unleashed, and now here's what's happening slowly.
I think it would also be super great if we could include a slide with all of it together, right?
Yeah, like summarizing.
Yeah, because, yeah, having to flip back and forth through all of
No,
it.
no, of course not. There is actually a slide at the end that has all the totals together.
Yeah.
What's your idea? To go further?
If for some reason it's,
Oh, these are two subs, make a grant.
yeah, or, I mean, like, we seem to, for whatever reason, to have them in 5-year blocks. So then to compare the 5-year blocks,
Perfect. Got it.
you know what I mean?
You're taking notes.
I will now.
Because right now, we're not talking about any pages yet where we're
Right,
proposing. it,
right. You don't get, you want to get the comparison to understand how the thing progressed and the changes. Next thing are sites under construction. Nellie, that's page 68. And I want to note that there are only 2 sites here that are really under construction. The Windermere on 57th Street has been on this slide for the longest time because it actually has an open permit and it's considered a construction. They haven't lifted a hammer in, I don't know, 6 years, 7 years,
They
right?
did a great job of making it look pretty.
They did a
and it
beautiful
looked like
facade
it was
and-
about-
Now, I will note,
Again,
Scaffolding's down. I will note, there is some discussion very quietly about a not-for-profit acquiring the whole building
thank you.
for affordable housing. Just out there, but it's not, I don't want to, it's not confirmed, but I know this discussion's happening.
It's such a beautiful building.
It's a
I can't
gorgeous
wait to
building.
tour it.
You don't want to shorten it, trust me.
No, you know.
Joe, this is Marty. How does the Penn South site fit into this, the one on 26th and 8th?
We haven't gotten there yet. That's our next slide.
Sorry.
And then there's one more, 319, 321 West 38th. This is the opposite of 317, 319 West 35th, where the developer followed through, signed all the agreements for the permanently affordable housing, illegal demolition, to fix that illegal demolition. And that building is about 90% complete right now. So.
Is West 46th Street, 11th Avenue, is that on there?
It is on the next slide.
Oh, yeah.
So again, a lot of stuff's happened, so you have to sort of separate them, you can't see them otherwise. So 622 11th Avenue, that again is a product of rezoning back in 2009, as part of the Western Rail Yards Agreement. And that developer came to this, committee for review for inclusionary housing plan very recently in the last like 4 or 5 months. And that's under construction. Marty, here's the, that's the eastern side of the,
Metro.
yeah, Metropolitan Lumber. Marty, here's the Penn South edition. And that's a deal that Penn South did privately. And we'll wait for the slides on those specifically. 705 10th Avenue, the DEP site, which was reviewed by Clinton Land Use and by this committee. And 806 9th Avenue, the MTA site, also reviewed. So those are both under construction.
Getting higher every day.
Absolutely.
With the Penn South building, the entire development is affordable
No,
housing or?
we'll go to the next.
Okay.
Go to, sorry, Steve.
I'm just wondering, because, just organizationally, could we like, you know, for example, sites under construction, could we just have, the first page be a list of all the sites under construction? As opposed to looking at one list and not realizing, oh, that's not complete, we have to look to the next page, you know what I mean? Like, overall, here are all the sites under construction, and then we can see the map showing, like, the
Sure.
2-page map.
So
You know what I
maybe
mean?
we can do.
I like it the other way.
Hmm?
To me, it makes more sense. For me, I'm a visual person, so
Uh-huh.
I prefer to see the map and then a list.
It's just like we were hearing from people like, well, what about this? What about this? It's like, oh, it's on the next page. Like you
Well,
would
part
know.
of it too is that our members have to be able to look at the information prior to.
Yeah,
Paul?
yeah, which
You
I
know, and
don't,
it says under 2 of 2. It's
yeah.
1 of 2, 2 of 2.
I just think the thing that I learned in doing this, if we crowd the page too much or all the images, you can't really see them or.
No, I'm not saying to show all the pictures.
I
I'm
know
saying like
you-
literally have a list of like
Yeah.
the following addresses or sites under construction.
And you can do a slide like we did at the beginning of the 5-year section, put the dots, put where they are.
Isn't this all just
That's it.
going into the affordable housing plan documents and ultimately be subsumed into the document? It's not going to be adopted like a PowerPoint presentation.
No, but these pages are part of the document.
Yes,
Yes. Yes, no, we're,
Like it'll be read almost seamlessly.
yeah, we're showing this just so you can see it.
Yes.
But it really is like, zoop. But I think Katie has merit, maybe,
just have the one, like the map right here, put the dots, so that you have all of them that are in construction, and then the next two pages have your little picture.
but I like, maybe you should do something, just a list, not a bad idea.
Either deliver, just some way, as you say, just so that you know, on one page where everything is.
Yeah, no, to get the, yeah, to get, yeah.
An overview, that's it.
So, yeah,
It's all gonna be there some way, right? I mean, I think the most important thing is for us to review the substantial changes.
so it's really important that people make these comments, because every time we've done it, it's gotten better for accessibility and like presentation, so do that. So let's go to page 70. And here you can see, Maria, this is a building that is not fully, it has 188 units, of which 56 of which are affordable. The Penn South, it's up there.
Well, it doesn't have a number of units.
Yeah.
on the
It just
page.
says.
It does.
It does.
No, in the little box.
In every, we only show in the boxes the affordable units. The text always shows the total
Up
number
top,
of
okay.
units.
Where's the total? I don't.
Where it says project,
Project description.
underneath.
188, yeah. And we've done that like that for years, because we don't want to overstate. This is about affordable housing, not just the other stuff.
Got
We picked those numbers up in the total, so.
Can we, since we're more attuned to affordable housing, and permanent affordable housing, maybe the units, where the box is indicating the, affordable housing, maybe we should color that one specifically, like yellow it.
Well, one of the things is not all of them are permanent, okay?
Okay.
These are not permanent.
It will change.
And so I think that's an important part to note, Maria. We should clearly make a note here, what's permanent and what's runs with a tax
Totally.
exemption.
Yeah.
Which we say in the information, but we don't.
Yeah.
It's taxes and bonds.
But the 421A, that's, are they not?
No,
So
this was under the wire.
if you're looking to ensure that
Yes.
we draw that out, sort of what Pete was saying is a great idea, just highlighting the whole, whatever it is, the period. Highlight that in yellow, whether it's permanent or 35.
I think that's good, because
On every page.
yeah, this is very clear. This one is 35-year affordability as opposed to others that are permanent.
Let's say permanent,
And doing something that just gives you a quick,
where you pop,
like,
you see, and then
actually,
you know
Maria,
the
we'll
difference.
do one color for permanent and one color for
Exactly, yeah.
a term.
Sure, make more work for yourself.
Full followed by roofing.
In the blue box, which says units,
Yes.
because of this conversation, maybe that just say affordable units.
Great, yep,
Oh, yeah.
yep. See, this is,
What did Paul say?
say, but affordable units, not units.
Oh,
And that blue box right there, Maria, that's on the page?
Yeah.
But the word affordable ahead of it.
Yeah.
Brian,
So it's not talking about all the areas.
That's a great idea. I think this plan is one of the more readable plans that CB4's put out, so it's really complimenting all those who worked on it.
I've been teaming with people for years.
Yeah,
to understand.
yeah. One thing and I think these suggestions are great. I do think that there is some merit, and I know it does say in the text, 188 residential unit residential building. I think there is some merit, though, to acknowledging the overall housing stock, just because the more market units that we are able to create in addition to the affordable units do alleviate some of the stressors on the affordable rent.
I think we can take these tables are so easy to manipulate.
Yeah,
We can do a column that says literally totally market rate units, affordable units, AMI bands. It's at a glance, you look at it. It's just that this is a document needs to evolve over time.
yeah.
And that's the way to go. And it's not hard. Information is all here.
But I think what's kind of awesome to see from this is the volume of units that have been generated over the course of this plan.
Can I add to that, in that if you do a chart with market rate units, affordable units, and then in parentheses, the percentage of affordable. Because that's already counted as a question, how many percent?
Gotcha.
What percentage?
That's, yeah.
And again, not hard to figure because it's
Right there.
exactly like,
Yeah, it's 220, that's 10.
I like this idea because it gives a fuller picture.
And we're saying on these pages,
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because it tells you big,
Not just
big,
in the
big.
chart at the end, yeah, but
If the
here.
chart at the end, you have to define.
So one thing, not for this individual page, but just picking up what Brian was saying about adding the actual units and getting a sense of the market rate in addition. Because I think that would be important for us to have some commentary on, not speculating, but just stating how that may impact, very much like in an EIS, how they may impact services.
I think one of the things I've gotten a lot of comments on is, right after this meeting, people want something in the affordable housing plan for the first time about the impact on services. So I want to say that's a related but separate discussion. I think that makes sense. How do people feel about that?
Just, can you say a little more? What do you think?
Basically, I got a lot of emails saying we should be noting that when housing is built, whether it's market rate or affordable, we have to have school seats, we have to have EMS, we have to have all the things you need to run grocery stores, which you need to run a community, you need to run a city. And I think that's because we say it a lot in our EIS comments. Well,
No, just to pull on that a little bit more, Katie, like.
he's one of the comments.
When we have environmental reviews and there's a new development, if you don't have, like, I think the number is 1,400 housing units, it doesn't trigger a school analysis. It doesn't
Right.
trigger these analyses that are
Right.
required. But what we're proposing is a cumulative effect of, there could be two 900 unit developments. Neither one would trigger a review of how those school seats. What we should think about doing is saying, as these developments come through, we should figure out a system for a cumulative impact. And once we hit a trigger point, we have to do an analysis of school seats. We have to do an analysis of emergency.
We, the city of New York.
We, the city of New
Not
York,
us
need
here.
to, even though, because we're gonna have so many developments coming in that are under the trigger. But then we're gonna end up with 4,000 new students. And no one's, all of a sudden it's gonna be a surprise. So,
And part of this is the lack of planning by the Department of City Planning.
yeah.
Because normally in most plans, you look at, it's not just this one, it's all of these together and how do they cumulatively hit?
But then that wouldn't be about individual, like that.
No,
It would be like in our overview, or that would be
Yes,
like
no.
a
I was
policy we would
I
adopt.
was proposing for it to be something that we start to think about, just because the comment that Brian made is bringing out that idea that all of the projects come to this board and any board as one project. Right? We see them in isolation. A developer is going to focus on their impact and what they're doing. And we might have 3 other developers within 6 square blocks that are also giving us their spiel. If we, as a community, are pointing out the impact, we have an opportunity to advocate with either those agencies or electeds to go ahead and put in place the mechanism for making sure those services will be available once these developments actually.
and that really belongs in the 38 pages of narrative.
Yeah, I was gonna
That
say that
section.
belongs somewhere else,
Not
not here, but yeah.
not on these slides, but I think,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I wanna say, do people feel that's something we should pursue?
I
develop it?
do, but I think we should go even further because the effects on the open space, on parks and to site services. And also there is something to think about displacement. As you get the affordable, you also get the market rate that increases incentives to change things. So I'd like that to be part of the discussion. How does that affect
Well, anything,
socioeconomic?
let me give it broadly. I think we should look at the key factors in the EIS chapters, like we did in our last meeting talking about, and just see which ones make sense. So I just want to get a sense from the committee. Is that something we should explore on writing, like a section of our narrative that speaks to that?
Yes.
Dolores, yes. Paul?
He's good.
Pete?
Yes.
Kevin? Katie? Roberta has concerns.
Like, yes, but to the extent that the city is performing some degree, like, there, my understanding, like, the Department of City Planning keeps population statistics that help inform things like, the school seats would be the most obvious one. I would be curious to just.
They don't, but they don't drive it by development.
That's fair, but you are then going back, you know, relative to like the most recent population statistics and, you know, how many school-age children you have, and then reallocating resources in that regard. And so to the extent that the city is doing that, I just want to understand, are we asking them to do something that's.
No, I can attest factually that when there is a rezoning proposed, they do this, the Department of City Planning does not look at multiple developments in its pipeline at the same time. And I think that's gonna be the result of our ask. Say, here are these environmental factors that we have. And we need to actually do planning, not just about each development, but the totality of the cumulative developments.
And how does that work temporally?
I think it's a matter of policy, because if you do that,
Sorry, and when I say temporally, I mean, are you looking in hindsight?
oh, no,
No,
it's
what
a
point does
no,
it-
as Pete, it's a policy matter.
Right, but I think, but to your question, it's like literally like, how would it work in practice, basically?
Right.
Yes.
Maybe it's like, hey, whatever, once a year, we need you to look at all of the developments that have been approved
Or in the
and,
pipeline.
or in the pipeline, and see how many
That's
households that is, and there has to be, I don't know what this percentage is the assumption that like 10% of all new apartments will have children in them, or whatever
No,
it is.
they have an actual metric.
Exactly.
How many
I don't
bedrooms,
know what the
create
metric
X, Y, Z, it's
Yeah.
right there.
But that once a year,
That's good.
they have to not just be looking at like the last census, but they have to be looking at all of the approved developments and say, oh, we have to assume that all these, that there are gonna be this many new kids and we need to plan for the school.
I think this is, let's try to bring this conclusion. This is a policy matter. And we're not gonna solve it, but we're gonna put it out there to say, you have a lot of methodology that you actually don't use. Let's use it, and like the idea of like annually, there must be, it might say by community district, if that's our concern, right? By community district to determine needs for X, Y, and Z.
It's not community district that to whatever jurisdiction is relevant, so if the school district, it's school
Oh,
catchment
sure.
area, for example. and-
Yeah, I would still say
Well,
community district.
Just the same way that our electeds have used this plan to go ahead and say that, look, we're producing affordable housing, they're using it as their talking point. What is in it becomes a talking point, and if we're putting it out there that, hey, we need to be also thinking about what else will be needed in the community as we grow.
No.
It's
So we're
another
gonna grow.
talking point for an advocacy.
Can I
for
just ask something, because I'm not clear, I'm not understanding what your concern is, or what,
Oh, I'm just wondering,
Yeah,
to what
here.
extent is like the Department of City Planning or Department of Education or any other entity ultimately evaluating some of these questions already? Because they do have to allocate, I feel like Paul hasn't answered this question.
Well, I just wanna know, in this process,
wait a minute.
right,
And to the extent that that is being done, it is a question that I have, I feel free to table it because the sentiment, I appreciate, like, there is no disagreement with a regular assessment of how to, like, determine impacts and allocate resources, but
based upon the developments in progress or the pipeline. I think, and that's the key difference.
Well, I'm curious, if it is already being done.
It is not being done for this
Hold on.
purpose.
I need to understand where Bert is coming from. If some of it is already being done, what is the issue in promoting it or putting it in part of the plan anyway? If some of it is.
assuming that we're not asking them to do the same thing twice, nothing. If we're asking them to do the same thing twice, that is, I think, duplicative of resources. and-
So let me respond to that. Department of City Planning is gonna use all the resources from the other city agencies. We're asking them to act in a different way, not ad hoc, but I think the word's cumulative, that's what I've heard.
Like when you hit a certain cumulative impact of pipeline per year,
Right.
you trigger what is an effect.
The totality of them, not just being made.
No, that's a good point. I don't think that. Oh, no.
No, we're going around the room still to say if we're in favor
Oh,
of it.
I'm
That's the thing. You in favor of adding that section?
I am, and expanding to.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
And
Yeah, I would say yes, to me it makes sense.
we'll craft it. yes.
Great.
And so my.
Oh, wait, you didn't ask.
My thought, Roberta, is
Yeah.
that much like the draft EIS on environmental impact, that maybe, this is a new thought that just popped in my head, is maybe we change the secret rules. Because we're the only city in the state that has a cumulative impact, right? The secret rules are written for the city, secret rules are written for one-offs, and we're talking about a cumulative impact. So DCP should be doing this once a year and looking at saying, what's built, what's in the pipeline, what's the impact on all the categories and the environmental impact statements. So socioeconomic,
Which are the secret requirements.
the super requirements have the same, but once a year, someone, DCP, maybe the agency that does this, looks at the cumulative impact, and I think if we do a community district, that makes some sense. But
Well,
maybe
that's the unit that is used.
that's a
Yeah.
unit, and then you can say if there's that impact on socioeconomic displacement, public safety, medical services, historic, like all of those things could be studied
Let's
cumulatively.
put people haven't spoken yet. Jennifer?
Yeah, I mean, let's say, I think. It's really like a super thing, and that it's not, like environmental use associated with a particular. Project or really particular permitting decision, but I like the idea of getting something once a year.
First thing
Some
we
ways I
are.
actually, like, a lot of the environmental greenhouses is like. Some sections will be very relevant to the particular project, and some sections will be totally irrelevant. It's sort of a waste of time. But like, getting once a year, I think would be
Like
more.
a comprehensive look.
Yeah, and that would be, that I think would be also like less. Like sometimes we're asking for like super detailed things for each individual project in a way that might not make sense. Cause it was something we want, we don't really care how many species like one building is gonna produce.
We want to know.
So instead of, asking for that and trying to give the weeds in a way that the. Developer may not have the interest or ability, based on our STCP, like they have the,
Or,
they can do a better analysis.
right, or if like the threshold is 1,200 and this is at 1199, like that kind of thing,
Yeah.
We also have Travis Rogers or.
Right, Kevin,
Oh,
we'll let me off in the room first, Kevin, and then online.
Yeah, this is probably obvious, but in the wording of this, if it is being done in effect, so if it's the calendar year 2025, they do an analysis. And it falls short, the calendar year of 2026, they do analysis and it falls short. There should be not just within the year, but within the consecutive years when it triggers. But what I mean by that? Let's pretend if there's 3,000 new residents, it triggers something with the school district or parks or whatever. In 2025, there's 1,700 new. In 2026, there's 1,300 new. Each individual year, they do the analysis within that year and not trigger anything. But after the 2 consecutive years with the 3,000, then it should trigger.
I appreciate your more thought about that, and we can just fix it by saying, based upon the completion year of the project. Because that means that's when that hits, right?
As long as you capture that kind of.
Right, like,
If you limit it within the calendar year,
then you can also get
you're gonna
around.
run into the same problem.
Well, the truth is, I honestly though, in our district, probably never gonna happen so far. I mean, the number of units we grow every year is like shocking.
Then my second question, in the Dropbox, there's a 4-page memo.
That's from Viren. Viren does not have to attend to send his comments. Right,
Gotcha. Thanks.
going online to Rachel, followed by Travis. About this item of a section about cumulative impact.
Yes, I think that's a good idea.
Any further thoughts, Travis?
I support one's position on better capturing the cumulative impact. I think we need to have a really, really strong understanding of the infrastructural needs that we have in our community, and that's the best way to capture it.
And let's go to any other land use committee members online, Marty or Gary. Any thoughts, Mark? Go ahead.
I'm really, really pleased to hear this discussion. I think it's fabulous. For a long time, as a member of the board, Joe, you will remember me asking, what about the cumulative impact? And
Yes, I do.
you and others said, well, it's not the responsibility of this individual developer because you shouldn't put it all on them. I really appreciate your brainstorming about a way to get cumulative impacts over multiple years. Got to include that going. Thank you.
Gary, any thoughts?
I think it's a really good idea, especially, since we're facing the closing of oh gosh, Beth Israel, thanks, blanking. I almost said Mount Sinai. Maybe that's wishful thinking. And I think, I haven't gotten through all of it yet, but I'm not sure that the NYCHA redevelopment has actually triggered a school analysis or any of this. So that's a concern.
It hasn't.
Yeah.
So before
So,
we get into that black hole,
yeah, I'm just putting that out there.
so noted. So continuing on in this section.
But it's the same issue because NYCHA doesn't have to look at cumulative impacts. They're just looking at the individual, the impact
Yeah.
of that project.
Right, but I think we'll have to, as we go through that, we'll explore that deeply over there and bring our concerns to the later. So go to page 65, Nellie. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm very sorry, I'm behind myself. Go to page 70. 71. 70.
Sir. Just like thinking on the whole.
There's a page 65 between 70 and 70.
Yeah, the reason I said page 65 is because of some numbering problems, obviously, because it was, the next one was page 65. So that is the former city-owned Till buildings that are being reconstructed, rebuilt entirely on the corner of West 22nd Street and 7th Avenue, the southeast corner. And that's 26 units. That is about, I would say, 3 or 4 months away from completion. That came to this committee also. And it's all 160.
The one pulled out for what?
So, yeah, on the-
Oh, boy, yes, I know that individual well. We have, and that is, will include units for the long-term tenants. There are 4 long-term tenants that are going back, and be shareholders at much less than the 165.
Is she coming back?
Yes, she is. Next one is, next slide. Which has the wrong page number. This is the DEP site. That is under construction and the platform is being built, and that's taking a long time because of the Amtrak issues.
Sure, just a
Yes.
specific thing, it's being built over the rail, the DP site itself, right? The DP site is being transferred,
Right, the whole site was DEP.
including over the railroad.
Yes. And we refer to it colloquially as the DEP section. Next one is the 806 9th Avenue, corner 54th, the MTA site. That's also being built, as Laura's noted, it's coming up now.
I see it. That's all you hear?
And then the last slide, Nellie, in this section.
Wait, I'm
Next
sorry,
one.
actually, can we go back to the one we just saw?
Yes.
sorry.
MTA,
So that's all affordable?
that's 100% affordable, yes. Next one is the Windermere, which we know we talked about that. And we'll see what happens. And then next is this small little 319, 321 West 38th Street, 11 apartments. And you can pass by there and you will see it is very close to being completed. Next is 622 11th Avenue, the one we spent here with, and that is 22 units. That's a much smaller building, all at 80%. And AMI, this has been entirely privately financed. So right now, go to page 75, next. We have a total of 788 units in construction, 403 affordable, because there are a number of totally, completely, 100% affordable buildings in that batch. So we're in a very good shape with what's in construction.
Almost 51%.
Okay, next slide. So, next again. Nothing has changed in this section at all. These are stalled projects. One is the slaughterhouse, 493 11th Avenue.
Actually, to be honest with you, Joe, I think you should sort of say what you just said. Maybe, I guess we can't call it stalled,
We can't call stalled.
but
Not the most stalled.
but it's a little confusing, for anybody who's sort of reading along, like, what are we talking about here? So like, I don't know if you say like not under construction or sites completed, but nothing else has happened. I don't know, but
Right, you wanna, I mean, the main factor is the public review is done, but you wanna sort of quantify a little bit why they're still sitting there. Is that accurate?
yeah, or just, yeah, make clear that
Right. So,
this doesn't count for much at the moment, so
Right.
we've done the best we can.
and we only spent, I don't know, 42 meetings with the slaughterhouse
Mhm.
in this community board, and that is stalled.
Try twice that.
Probably, I know, we've been over multiple years and multiple things. The 560,
Christine was chair.
he was chair. The 560 West 52nd Street building is approved with Euler and is stuck in the HPD, we don't have any staff to do something mode. And then the odd one, 500 West 28th Street, is the illegal demolition by Related that made the commitment to replace the building. And HPD doesn't have the legal staff to manage this regulatory agreement, and that has been going on for 5 years.
So perhaps the title could be sites, sites where public review has been completed, but work,
Not started.
or
Let's, thank you. I want to get some ideas. Gotta say it
not yet
properly.
developed.
For
Right.
outstanding agency approvals needed.
No, the
No, they're
review's
not.
done.
All the approvals
Reviews
are in
done.
place.
Reviews
I mean,
done.
it does appear that you require additional work for like to establish the regulatory agreement, like there's additional.
Or could we say,
Maybe they're not.
Unbuilt,
Divulge it.
Unbuilt,
Yeah,
there you go.
Unbuilt. just one word.
Like on house, it's a nice
Well,
name.
Let's get some, we just know we gotta get some words here. I don't know what the words are, but
or
you're right.
maybe, but it also sort of seems like, and these, we should,
Right.
I don't know, forward onto our electeds or something and say, look, everything's done here. We could have this extra housing.
I mean, we're talking like for that little building on 28th Street. That's a regulatory agreement review and related, we'll build it at no cost to the city.
Yeah.
And that's another 5 apartments, like, give me a break.
Yeah.
We have brought up this one.
We
And
brought,
slaughterhouse
We've
has
had meetings,
constantly
yeah.
been spoken about. I mean, this, when Corey was council member, this was a big deal because it was originally to be a 100% affordable entire project, and that was a big deal for him to stand on as an elected to say that he can bring that. So everybody's been focused on it. It's just nitpicky crap that has been holding it back from getting stuff.
well, it's actually
Nope.
financing.
Don't
It's
forget,
Now
it.
it's financing, but it was nitpicky
Yes, it
stuff to begin with.
Don't forget
Yes,
that that site was also supposed to, quote, air quotes, replace the affordable housing that was to be built on the 20th Street lot, which is now a park.
And site M, which is on West 41st Street and 10th Avenue, we replaced 2 commitments from Western Rail Yards and from Hudson Yards.
So that's really an empty promise at this point.
I would not put that in the plan, but I think I will take the note, that remark under consideration. Let's go to page 83. These are sites under public 83. Sites under public review. Next. Okay, so here we have a total compendium of sites, from state sites, privately owned, city owned, not-for-profit owned, and something that is going through a specific text change. Let's go to the next page, 84. This is the second page of,
And again, having one list of all of the sites together would probably.
yeah, I got, that's a general note, it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Go to page 84, which is actually coming right after 80. Next page. Next page. Oh, okay. So now here we have sites that are in the first two, 629, 64th and 801 11th. Those are in zoning review right now. We got the yeses on those. The Chelsea NYCHA edition, which is the new building being built on the Chelsea campus, and 441 West 48th Street. That this committee considered the Cure for Harassment building on West 48th.
Sorry,
Next.
can we go to the previous page? I think that's where we're supposed to be, where you're
Joe.
talking.
She went ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go back one page. Thanks, Gary. There we go. No, one more page ahead. Yeah. The two on the upper left are rezonings that are currently in process, through the AS process. The Chelsea NYCHA, the original, new building for Hudson Gill site. And then 41 West 48th Street, the Cure for Harassment that we approved, a couple of months ago. Next. So now, I want to tie, these two are connected. This building 454 West 35th and Hartley House are connected as one project. And I will give you some good news that finally HPD has assigned a project manager to Hartley House. It only took Roberta 3 years. So there is now movement back and forth discussing what to do and how to proceed, and that just happened in the last 3 weeks. And that's connected in the financing with the 454 West 35th Street building. Next. That's Hartley. Next. This is the conceptual plan for 304 West 49th Street with a text change that will produce roughly 18 affordable units in a building that will have 69 units total. Decided a parking garage today. Came to the board about 2 months ago. Next. I will say nothing about this site. Next.
Well, shouldn't that go in our stall category?
It's the public review has not been completed. The public review has been completed and they're solved. Next, 441, West 48, that's those 3 fear for harassment units, and I will report that the developers in active conversations with HPD to get to a regulatory agreement, and they're actually talking about it and figuring it out. 629 West 54th Street next. These 2 are what's called the Wicklow North, and those are the ones that we got the EIS and we responded to. And we expect to.
47th Street,
No,
what are we talking about?
this is the cure for harassment on 441 West 48th Street.
Wait,
And then we just skipped ahead to the next slide after that.
I'm sorry.
okay.
Oh, I'm going too fast. Just-
No, you're fine, just the slide up there does not correspond with what you just stated, so I wanted to flag it.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. Let's go back. So we're now on page 90. Page 89, that's the cure for harassment building.
Okay.
Next slide. That's the Wicklow North, the 2 projects with affordable housing and market rate housing, and there's a rezoning. We've only seen the EIS so far. These should be in Euler during 2025.
And we don't know what the AMI bands are? It hasn't been-
They're not that far along yet in the process.
If we, potentially want NA or question mark them, it's.
Yeah, I see the bonus says unit breakdown, not yet final, because it's very much like we don't know yet. Next,
It does not say that in the Dropbox version.
no, it doesn't. I did a bunch of tweaks today to fix it. And I'm gonna send this one out again after tonight. 801 11th Avenue, same thing, 119 units. Now, also I should note that these are sites that propose for the first time rezoning above 12 FAR residential. But later in the plan, let's speak about our areas for very high density. Next, please. This, we all know, Bayview, we just passed a letter on this, and this is 100% affordable, approximately 139 units, but the breakdown is not yet finalized at all. One of our big wins, this moved out of ESD pipeline into actual RFP and now awarding. And it's going into the GPP, the general project plan has already been heard, and it's going through the approval process. Site next, please. Another win. This was an ESD pipeline, state-owned, Site K, 418 11th Avenue. It has been announced. There will be a total of 1,349 residential units. This is an FAR of 18. 404 apartments will be permanently affordable. And this is now going through the process of the final agreements with ESD and the developer. And we'd expect this to come, like Bayview did, to a public meeting, a hearing, and then a GPP.
What's the magic number? 1,800 units, school, right?
I don't know. I think it might be 1,400. This is 1,349. Yes, Doris.
I don't recall them coming, to this committee. Have they?
It has not, it went to, it has not gotten to the point yet where it starts public review.
No, I understand that, but a lot of times people come before public review to start.
Yes,
listening to us.
this was just awarded, and I would say that one developer is under consideration, reached out to the board, we had a briefing, but multiple developers did not. It's kind of surprising. Normally, if they're in the running, they want to reach out because they know eventually they're going to be in front of us. So this case didn't happen.
Is that the same one that Governor Hochul mentioned a few months ago?
Governor Hochul's been to a lot of openings or dedications in our
She
district.
mentioned one.
This is more than one. Bayview is one. This is on 11th Avenue
That's
between
the one.
35th and 36th Streets.
It's
right out
She
from
mentioned
Jackson.
one on 48th Street, 49th Street, or I heard that in the news sometime.
No, the ones we have so far, we have done, from our affordable housing plan identified state-owned sites. We said they showed the ESD pipeline. And the ESD has been engaging with us, and they've gone into the pipeline, and so far, 2 have been awarded, which is pretty amazing. Bayview and this site K. And now we're going to the next phase.
Yeah, just a question.
Yes.
It's highlighted at 337 at 60%, 130 at 67.
Yes.
Is there such a disparity in the range? Why is there not
We will get to ask these questions and get to make modifications when it comes to starting the environmental process. This is a developer's response, and that is actually information that we got directly from ESD. So we're not to that next,
So it's not that still
right,
in the mix.
Right.
So.
next please.
One question though,
Yes,
since
sure.
it's state owned.
Yes, it's, so let me talk about this for a
Yeah.
moment.
It's not gonna.
We have the ESD pipeline, Empire State Development, pipeline. That means some agency of the state owns it. Bayview is owned by the Department of Corrections. This site, Site K, the Javits Development Corporation. So, but this,
My,
sorry,
my question was, is they can do a general project plan, they don't have to do.
that's correct. This, yeah, and the RFP went out for this one and for Bayview saying there'll be a general project plan.
Wondering, I don't know if you think it's relevant or not, to note for the ones that are state that it does not have to go to Euler. Because again, that process is different, and I don't know if that is something you think that's important for us to at least allow.
I actually missed that, Dolores.
The flag, yeah, that's a good
In,
idea.
in the other one, I changed saying GPP plan, yeah, we have to do that. I caught on another one, didn't catch on this one. Yes.
But
Next,
specifically saying like no Euler necessary. Because not everybody will understand that if you say GPP, that no Euler is necessary.
I would probably say not subject to you,
But I'm not certain for what they plan on doing here, but it appears to be at the ESD level interest in taking things through the public review process.
Sometimes they do that, right? But
But like specifically, in the past couple of years, there has been, it like post the whole Penn Station saga.
they are not doing you funding.
Okay, there.
Like the
But
Port
they have
Authority.
stated there.
But either way, being
Being clear is
we know it's
important.
GPP, so we know we can state that, at least that distinguishes it from the process.
We might want to do that as a note on these, so it's clear, we don't get confused when they read it.
And PPPs do still have public hearing requirements.
But it's not the.
Yes, no, it's not the Euler, but like legally, they must have certain public hearings.
But we don't touch it in the same way,
Mhm.
or have this is, I mean, the two mandates that a board has.
Yeah,
Is
there's no
to participate
statutory.
in Euler, and because we're in New York City, to sign on liquor licenses, that's it. Everything else is just like.
They did reach out. They did reach out to the land use committee to start talking about, so they are ready.
Yeah, I think we're getting more responsive. We have around from ESD, but it's not a charter-based response.
Yes, I just think it may be helpful to just distinguish that it's gonna go through a different process, since you lost your pen?
Right, keep going, I'm sorry,
Okay, that's it, that's one.
so next one, please.
We're intrepid, we're here at the right place.
Yes, okay, so the next one is, Intrepid, hello, guys.
Can I speak with her?
Don't whisper off. Participate. 621 West 45th Street, the Intrepid parking lot, and that's an RFP, again, state-owned site. In this case, controlled by the New York State Department of Transportation, just went out for, development. And the numbers you see here have to be changed. This was part of the original plan. When we talked about the FAR going to like from M24 to 6.2 or something. So we have to now plug in the new numbers. This is also put out at a possible 18 FAR. So again, we have a remnant of the old plan, but wanted to make sure we had this out there. We don't have information as to what it will be, but I think we'll do a rough calculation on that based upon the activity.
So this page to be edited,
Yes. And others,
updated.
we have done that calculation, right, this one. Next, page 78. Oh, and by the way, I now know why the numbers are different. They moved them from section to section and didn't change the page numbers. That's what it's about. Like this is page 109 because it was in a pipeline. Now it's in the public music. Okay. Hudson Gillside. Now here's something that this is what was proposed under the original Chelsea National Working Group plan. I think we will just plug in what's currently proposed by the development team on this one, but I wanted to talk about how we met. These are the Chelsea National stuff a little bit tricky, right? I thought that's the simplest thing to do. How do people feel about that? Maria, what are your thoughts?
Oh, I was talking to Dolores about your phone.
Would you like to repeat the
I was
question?
distracted.
Can you repeat that, Joe, please? Can you, thank you.
You sent it.
That was Dolores.
I'm
Thank
so
you.
sorry.
Now you know where it is.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
So,
He's gonna repeat it.
yes, so this page refers to numbers that were out of the original Chelsea NYCHA working group plan. However, we currently have another proposal in front of us.
Hmm.
I am thinking on how to manage just this one, because it was called out separately. Either we can take it out entirely, because we're gonna get to the Chelsea NYCHA section later, because it's not accurate anymore, although there is a
Yeah.
building proposed for this. What do you think, Carrie?
I think it should be the NYCHA redevelopment, the whole thing,
Gotcha.
as well as, you know, the two campuses.
And the thing is that in that section, all I've done is highlight the text, because I'm talking about how we put it in the plan without no
Right,
positioning. Okay,
right.
All
I
right.
hear you. I hear what you're saying.
let's go now to, next slide, page 95.
She's showing, sorry, she was showing 93, but. okay.
There you go, perfect. So now this is HPD pipeline sites, right? I should just note and disclose that all these buildings except for 535 West 55th Street are controlled by Clinton Housing. And this has again been a HPD project manager issue of how to do things. So I believe, and I think Roberta can attest to this too, that is getting better now recently to a certain, compared to what it was 2 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Better. So a lot of this is the staffing and figuring out what to do. The first one though, 535 West 55th, that is the Harborview parking lot that was put out for RFP. It was awarded, went through the whole process. And then the prior mayor decided, oh, let's not do that. Let's do it. I'm not joking, a 60-story building in the mid-block. Didn't go over that well. And it's been on hold since. So let's go through now. I want to skip to that. That's page 100. And this is a Hudson Yards points of agreement issue. We have been through extensive community planning initiatives, both with the Harborview Tenant Association and the community board and our elected officials. And I don't know, honestly, I bring this to the committee. I feel like we should leave it where it is because we have such an issue with NYCHA on the other.
I would leave it mainly because this is something that Gail Brewer is
Yeah.
still fighting and advocating
That's right.
for, and she can use this plan to continue to point to something which is highlighting what we've already talked about.
Because we achieved total community consensus to get this thing built. In the rock, we increased the number of units from what they proposed. We made this a much bigger building to make it happen, and then
Wait, I'm sorry, I'm a little confused.
Hmm.
So this, has this gone through the approval?
this went through 2 RFP processes. The first award was made. The developer's office was opened by the FBI and all this equipment was taken out. So then he was de-designated. The second one, it was awarded, and then the laws administration decided they didn't want to do this instead. They wanted to do a much larger building, and the thing just went on hold.
So I guess my question is this similar to the projects we said earlier are like, they're approved and then we got their debt?
No,
No.
it's
Okay.
in the pipeline to happen.
So,
Designated town.
so at this point, we had gotten to a point where we were going to start a new learning process.
Mhm.
Because there were developers that were awarded,
In place.
but that never went through. So we now would have to
Blasio.
go back to having a developer identified, then having the opportunity for a review.
It's still sitting in the pipeline. It's got to come up again. The question is, given the timing, leave it here for our councilmember Brewer, but
I think you don't take it out.
no.
Our review continues to be one of the points in our asks for budget requests, et cetera. We need to make sure that our review continues to get some love.
So let's go to our next section, which is starting on page 103. And that's ESD or state controlled pipeline. So let's start first on the bottom, right. And
Wait, what
that's
was the last pipeline we just looked at? Who was that controlled by? Oh, HPD.
Yeah, this is, now we're on the state side. Voorhees, this has been in our Hunter College site, been in our plan for quite some time. And I think it is very important now on the Clinton land use side that we have been engaging with ESD saying, move this one next, move this one next. This is controlled by CUNY. It's they own it. They've talked about possibly doing some faculty housing. I think this is a great candidate for meeting with ESD and saying, let's bring CUNY to the table. This is the site that is right for redevelopment. It's through block from 40 to 41st Streets. It has an FAR 7.5, probably flexible on that, but the point of it is, it's sitting there empty, it's been empty for 10 years. Right? Next one that we've had always,
Question on Joe,
Yes.
is that one that in the future part of the plan, say 18?
no, this is a mid-block, it's below the, yes.
Why is it empty? Is it like unsafe or?
No, Hunter College moved its programs out of there. And then why it's empty is because the mayor and the governor, de Blasio and Cuomo, fought for like 6 years over who controlled it. Because of a very weird reverter clause, it's city-owned, leased to Hunter. It was one of these things like basically two guys wanting to slap each other. And that it just got resolved maybe a year and a half ago. So,
And you're still on to.
So they should move on it quickly.
huh?
They should move on it quickly.
Yeah,
Expeditiously.
I just think that this is the thing to really recommend to ESD.
Yeah.
You working with everybody, let's work with CUNY and figure this out.
Yeah.
So Paul, just a recommendation for the land use side, that this really should be something we with ESD about to say, let's move this one next.
Isn't that right across the board, but it was from expansion, so wouldn't it make sense to have higher density, that's fine.
No, but you should talk about it in land use and that's what I'm talking about. I said we should be flexible on the FAR, and we should, this is not a high density, very high density site.
But it will produce a lot of housing anyway, because it goes through the block.
This is a very large block site.
Very large site.
Yeah, it's a large site, yeah. So, and let's go to the Quill Depot. That's the bus terminal, that's the bus storage facility on 11th Avenue between 11th and 12th. And again, it is a site controlled by the state. We should be pushing as the state is moving along on this. But I want to give good news, the Javits Center marshalling yards, that is the next site that is going to come to us. ESD is actively engaged, looking at that and determining how this can actually get developed. And they want to go the same GPP, RFP route. What do we do? How do we do it? And when we get to that slide, we'll talk about it specifically. However, I want to note, we identified a new state site that's been there staring us in the face. So if we can turn the page, Nellie, we'll go down site by site.
Joe, excuse me, isn't the marshalling yards site one of the sites that was talked about being integrated into a plan for the Hudson Yards West 3 square blocks south of that?
Not integrated into the plan for Hudson Yards West that's proposed by Related, but by the community board saying, let's take all these sites together and figure something out. Yes.
That's right.
Yes. So here's the proposed change. It's the first time we're seeing a substantive proposed change. This location, not quite right, sorry. This location, we proposed a larger, it's currently 2 FAR and 2-3. We propose that it become a 13 FAR. At this location, we look at this as a good location for high density, very high density rezoning to the 18, but we must reserve FAR for the Javits marshalling yard use. That is
Right, for their trucks.
integral to the whole thing working. So this is the idea of pushing this up. So this is what it is today. This slide says current, you see, right? Page down, Nellie. You can see the change in the unit yield. It went from 2,063 to 2,923 units at this site. That's an immense development. And the affordability went from 618 to 877. Page back and forth, people can see the difference.
When it says proposed by whom?
Proposed here tonight. In other words, one of the remits that Paul and JD talked about is we really want this very high density now. Let's start thinking about it. And this is the first substantive change in the plan as a policy change. Paul.
Just to explain a little bit further, the 12 FAR cap removal, and that is starting to be R11 or 12 districts, 14 and 18 FAR. And rather than reacting to each application that comes in, we want to integrate it into this plan. So when somebody comes to us and says, we want to put high density here, we can say, let's put a high density here. Because it makes sense based on community planning. And going back to the earlier discussion about cumulative impacts, where does it make sense to have high density? So that the mid blocks in Clinton Preservation District are targeted for high density when we can provide housing through other areas that are
It
targeted.
had to be rezoned anyway.
Had to be rezoned area, and the city, this is the result of city of yes and both area, both changing our lives. So how do we think about this as a board, and how do we strategize on this to produce housing and work in a way that creates a good community and a good neighborhood for people to live in?
So as a part of our discussion with ESD about the Intrepid site, we said, yes, we're willing to go to a much very high density, but you need to deal with some sort of height cap or management of how the bulk and the density gets spread over the site. And because these are larger sites, you can do that. You get a lot of housing in the density without having the 80-story and 90-story towers at this location. The one thing that is a big concern across the community, I've heard this over and over, you do not want to be walled off from the river. And how does that happen? So here's the balance that Community Board 4 always strikes. Yes, give us more density, but do something. And we put this out, not in details, with an idea. A very high density zone, which we've called this for a while. And then a height cap. I don't know what that should be, but that's what we need to open. Sam?
Okay, two questions. One is, are you officially starting, this is now proposed changes?
Yes.
Like everything from now on is.
Right, like prior sort of like clarification, fix or.
Yes,
Yes.
okay, trying to confirm that.
Yeah.
And then,
We're now to definitely, and we'll say on top, current proposed.
my other question is about the, not only be walled off in the river thing. It's interesting, that's just me, because I just don't know what that means to people, because.
It means a series of high rises on the river that people are in the valley in the center.
Like a very tall building, does that block you off more than like a short building, but there's just a continuous row of short buildings? I don't know, but I feel like I could hear that different ways. How are people gonna be?
The example that was used frequently in this is London Terrace is a very high density. It is much more than 12 FAR. It's probably like 15 FAR, 14 FAR. When you walk down that street, you don't perceive that to be a monstrous building at a scale.
Okay, so actually having a continuous street wall is totally fine. It's
No,
not.
continuous street wall that you manage the density by putting it throughout the whole site, not concentrating it on towers at either end or in the middle.
So I know that, so
Okay.
we have another point, but I just wanna point out, this is a very unique site also because this is what has been called the terminus of the High Line. Which it could also be an entrance, but either way, this is where the High Line actually comes down to grade. And so that's something that whoever's gonna develop there would have to consider what that impact and that negotiation with friends of the High Line about the positioning of the building and where height could be. We very easily could see where the proposal could come, where there's more acceptance of height that's further east, away from the river because it's away from the High Line, but people may be more accepting of height.
We have two
So I
major.
just want to point that out, that it's unique because of that. High Line does go through part of that site.
Two major encumbrances on the site. You must provide a functioning marshalling yard for a convention center. And you must provide breathing space and an actual easement through it for the High Line. This is a challenge. This is like, not like a snap your fingers, figure this out. Other thoughts?
No, I was just curious with the wall and river fear, what that meant.
Right.
It sounded like, thank you.
But I also, to add to the concern about that, is the shadows on the estuary of the river, like the Hudson, right? Like, so it's
Hudson River Park,
shadows cast as well, so it's the movement of the towers towards the east, so the shadows don't cast onto the water. of the river. So there is some impact of
The estuary and the park itself.
Right, I was gonna say.
That's where the park is all.
Yeah, here 76, which is.
Right.
So
Yeah, so these are things that are like new, not new, but like, it's like more nuanced.
But the bottom line is that we're not proposing a development. What we're
Correct.
saying is that the site, if we can imagine it, that it was all housing. This is what we could see here, and this is what you can start with, Mr. Developer, that you're thinking about what the community's identified as what we would like to see. And where we can start a negotiation.
And more specifically, this is the R12 mapping.
Yes.
right? Like, this is where the high density FAS 18 goes, is this site. Now figure out how to make it work within all these other constraints. this is when we're starting to
So a
say.
lot of community boards are not saying, please give us your R11s and R12s.
Correct.
I'd say we can, I'm not 100%.
We're saying if it's going to happen to us now,
Yeah.
this is where it
you
makes
do it.
sense.
Exactly.
Though it does, sorry,
Sorry, go ahead.
though it does seem a little bit like, we're like, yeah, go tall, but don't cast any shadows and leave a lot of it not tall and good luck to you.
Yes, and that's okay, and we can figure that out.
And developers do figure that out.
Yeah.
By the way, you just mentioned the equations, it's called development in New York City.
I mean, I also think you were anticipating what will be genuine community concerns if anything becomes proposed, and so by putting those out in front, I think that there's a compelling reason to want to do that in the plan.
And we don't say exactly what it should be ever, because that's to be figured out, but something's gotta be baked in as a thought.
I think that in the past, we advocated for a 30 feet height from 11th Avenue.
Not here.
I'm not talking about, she's talking about, I'm talking about the West 40s.
Yes.
So we were already advocating for the height.
Yeah, and that does come up in this
Yes,
presentation.
it will, it comes up later, yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, Joe, you were saying we're not gonna advocate for a specific number?
Here,
Not in this, at this juncture, at this point, because it's putting out this plan's about putting out the sound of what gets things done, right? So establish a very high density district height cap. Not saying what that should be, because it may vary also from site to site. But to know, for the development community to know, for the agencies to know, that there has to be a height cap to make it work. So you don't have incredible public pushback. Because I don't know what it should be capable.
and part of it is that the height distribution, you might be more comfortable with more height on one side and less on the other, and so by being prescriptive.
Or site
in the
to site too, you don't even know.
Yeah, it's really like you have less opportunity for a developer to pursue, what they believe it would be.
But I don't get, like, what is a cap without a cap?
Well, there is no cap at all. So we're saying develop, establish a height cap. And that's a part of a public discussion that happens. We are putting the seed of policy out there for it to be discussed further.
Yeah, so when the RFP goes out, there is now a blueprint to ESD of what this community is thinking about, because they also need to get the plan through. Even though they'll do a GPP, you still have to have community buy-in, which means the electeds across the board, et cetera, things like that. So it's just more transparency around, this is where we're willing to start the conversation.
To me, it's sort of like, this is the criteria, sort of, and you be innovative, creative, do your magic, do your work, and come to us with some ideas.
And we have two examples of that. One is the Intrepid site, when that RFP came out, we raised the point that JD is raising now, that along 11th Avenue, we've been promoting a 135-foot height restriction. And so we were talking to the entity about making sure that was in as part of the conversations with the RFP. The other example I like to use is the Lala's area and Douglaston sites, just south of Hudson Yards, where we negotiated some height reduction on there. So it tapered from the Hudson Yards plan down towards Chelsea.
And built a mid-block sort of leg.
And so those buildings are a little bit shorter than the developer originally proposed, because we had said to them, we want height issues discussed. We didn't say what the number was. We had a height discussion and we contextualized the height of those site developments so that they blend, they move downward from, and similarly on Hudson Boulevard now, we do the similar with FAR. Hudson Yards is higher, denser, and then it tapers north as you go into the neighborhood of Clinton.
Yeah.
And so the height dialogue is.
Is really what we're asking for. It's not a
Right.
specific cap. We're saying
We're
we
establishing.
need there to be a community discussion about height issues.
And we've seen positive results. The, Mercedes House is a great example where that just comes down. And we also said we need a place to put the stables for the NYPD. And so we have a
I mean,
built into the
I'm
building.
gonna take someone West 29th Street building, we literally started with the developer doing a presentation, briefing to the board. And it was like a 80-story building on the corner of 29th. And I literally looked at the model, I said, so let's start here. I walked up and I took something off and I said, forget that, let's figure out something else. And what they did is they came back and they got the same density in a different configuration. And we got the same number of both market rate and affordable units.
Did you see the zoning 101 training, Joe?
Uh-huh.
You saw it recently?
No, a while ago. This is about the sugar
It
cubes
was,
and everything.
was it recorded?
Yeah,
I was gonna say it was, maybe it's worth watching again.
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking about like,
you're talking about it's the how-to. This is.
Yeah,
no, I'm
basically-
just talking frankly about like the words. Like,
Right.
I actually don't think we're suggesting height cap. I think what we're saying is, again, we just want to be really clear that height really matters to us. And yes, we're saying go high density and go higher. But come talk to us about, so that we can have a real discussion about height.
So for example, one of our attendees is Greg Richey tonight from the related companies.
Mhm.
People are here to look and see what we're talking about, to get the signals.
Mhm.
And we say, you do the words high cap in, and we know what we're talking about.
But that's important for the RFP that goes out, because
Yeah.
again, depending on what the type of developments that will be attracted to an RFP depends on how it's described, so their words matter. So when we put in that we are looking at a specific height cap, if we are saying specific, or we're just saying that, if we're saying the term cap, you're not gonna have someone who says, wow, look at this site, this is great for a 160-story building. They're already gonna know that's not gonna fly, right? Because again, it's the RFP that we want to, what's the word? Telegraph to ESD, this is where this board is already comfortable.
So for example.
I will say also, oh, sorry, Joe.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna make an example that's sort of the alternative, which is when Bayview came before us, we said no infill building at all. And they came back with an infill building and the board passed it unanimously. So.
And very sensitive, but it was very
Yeah.
sensitive.
Yeah,
thoughtful, that's what it
sensitively
did.
built thought, and it, took into account all of the preservation issues that everyone was having, and therefore we got, a taller building that we said no to originally, but it made sense.
Because the flip side is we had a developer that showed up first for Site K and wanted to build a 1,300-foot high building, 130 stories. Because this was some developer idea, concept, and kept putting out there that in fact, this is what was going to be accepted. Well, thank you so much. Later, let's get something to be accomplished. So I want to note for that what this means, changing the zoning, the designation would give us an increase of 860 apartments overall, and an increase of 259 affordable apartments. This is a substantial increase in both market rate and affordable production. But we've only hit a 17 FAR for residential because we have to reserve that portion for the marshalling yards, for the Javits. So. How do people feel about this one? The marshalling yards that we just talked about so far, it's around the table. How do people feel about it? Loris?
I can't really speak to the calculation of the numbers, but obviously
They're based on the methodology we've used.
right, I don't know the format.
It's at the end of the presentation.
I still don't know it, but all I'm saying is that the logic behind it makes sense, and we should be saying that with these changes that we're being, like Paul said, proactive in the fact that we've had major land use changes, and we need to be thinking about, well, what does that look like and what are we willing to sell? Okay?
So I'm the right developer, with the right architect, possibly, maybe, what is this? You go, oh, this is sort of, and the highlight, you never know. Sometimes they go 1,300 feet. Sometimes the right developer might just have a picture that we fit right in. That's very.
Yeah, I would have to look at this a little more closely. That's been around quite some time and I don't recall very much of it like this.
I'm good with the concept.
Yeah, that's a good way of saying it. I'm good with the concept, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a concept plan, it's not an execution plan. Roberta?
Good concept, good to put, a firm, like, stake in the ground saying that we are interested in a high density in a particular place, and then after a lot of discussions, I think this is an appropriate place to start. Yes, of course, that there is an entire community context to consider, but that, yes. Yeah, I don't even know if it's possible, it's not really the place, if there's ever a place in a narrative to mention specifically the High Line.
Well, I think we should, because this site is so highline
Yes,
driven.
yes, and
Yes.
whether the Friends of the High Line are opposed or supportive will likely be very important to the
Yes.
site.
JD? Okay,
What about online?
how about Maria? I'm in the room first.
Yes.
In the room, land use,
Thumbs up.
land use.
So, I think 18 is too high, but I understand the rationale is like, we're gonna get it. It's gonna be rammed down our throat, whether we like it or not.
Let's manage the remedy.
And so let's manage the remix. But I do think that the marshalling yards is, an underrated site. It is access to and from the High Line, which is important. And we just spent a lot of time with, Western Railroad zoning, where one of the big gripes from Friends of the High Line was view and air and light. And so my concern is that density on the site might have a significant impact on that. But to Dolores's point, if the developer feathers the site so the density, the height rises towards the 11th Avenue portion. And
Where the high density exists today.
yeah, where the high density exists, it's totally, manageable. So I guess it's with reservations, I would.
Second,
I think this makes sense. It's a good concept.
going online, Carrie?
I'm not sure I get a vote here, but yes.
No, we're just trying to get opinions, that's all.
Yes, I think it's really interesting and I like the idea of, being able to say, look what we did here. So we don't have to do it, in the Chelsea Historic District.
Let's go to, Travis, followed by Rachel.
I have a ton of reservations about this project. It seems like a huge undertaking.
It's not a project, it's merely a
concept.
concept.
And I was thank you for correcting that. And I think the major driving force behind part of my reservation is someone stated, "Oh, we need the right developer, the right planner." It's like it's too many right things that need to happen for this to go off in a way that be palatable for me. So I struggle.
We always need that though, Travis. For every project.
It could be an FIR 3, we need that.
That's fair. That's a fair point.
Marty, or, sorry, Rachel, is that Marty?
Nothing to add.
Marty, any thoughts?
Yes, I totally appreciate what Travis just said. I think there's a lot of things. There's three main issues that I hear. It's the High Line and light and air. It's the marshalling yards, and it's struggling over not making it higher than any building in the city. Excuse me, that's not the way to put it. It's struggling over height and making it compatible with our neighborhood. Those are the three issues that I see. They are in play. I don't think we can. There's too much juggling that has to happen for us to land on any one of those. We need to talk about it still.
Well, I think what it is, Marty, is that we need to note in this slide those issues as considerations, because we, like everything else, we're putting this out. If something's going to happen, here's where it could happen. Here are the considerations you must take into account. Because for factually, today, the marshalling yards is going to have an RFP and it's being considered and it's going to be brought to us in the next 2 months. So this is on the train. We have to figure out a way to direct the train.
I think your suggestion of adding something on the slide of considerations is helpful. Also, in addition to that, I do think in the narrative for a couple of the different sites that we've talked about is where we can give examples where there is more conversation is needed with other stakeholders, and that's something where we could mention the High Line as a stakeholder.
That's good.
We also could mention that there's unique
attributes.
Unique attributes to a specific site or a specific area where it sits within a community that we would like to ensure that is always part of the conversation. That's something like that, where that's also narrative in the preamble.
That's right. The way that I would look at it is not a binary. Nothing here is binary. It's all nuanced and open for discussion. But here are the issues.
Correct.
Nice.
So I think that we have consensus over that one. So this one is going to be it.
Well, I just want to address the concern that people have about the developers. I think one of the advantages on this site, despite all the concerns we have, is that we do have a good working relationship with ESD. All of these concerns we're raising tonight can be brought up with them before the RFP is issued.
To be incorporated.
To be incorporated within the RFP, so that we have a better chance of getting one of those better developers. So just to,
I want to move on. We had a good discussion about this. Move on to the next piece, which is next page. This is the Quill bus site. Now, both the affordable unit and the overall unit yield is less here because we must reserve 3 FAR for the bus storage, which is part of keeping the MTA running in Manhattan. So it's not like it's a maybe, right? This is the current, which shows a total of 1,891 units with 567 affordable. Page down, Nelly. This is another increase to 18 FAR, right? Those numbers are not quite right, but it brings it up to about 743 units with 2,748, 2,478 units. Yes, Paul.
did you just say you need 3 FAR for MTA and that says 1? So that has to be.
There's an error there. There's no question.
So, okay, so that would actually result in a 15 FAR residential.
Right.
On that
So,
side,
yeah,
which is our 11 zone.
I will tell you that Matt Sullivan did the calculations. I think they're right in the final tables, but some of these things are not right.
Yeah.
I want to know to everybody, the totals on the tables are definitely got to go over with a fine tooth comb because things move from place to place, and I don't think everything's picked up. So we should not focus on that. But that Paul's right. It's going to be really an R11, not an R12.
R12.
Right.
Right. And
Oh, we should also probably state those zones when we say this, right?
Yeah.
In this
R11
right,
zone.
R12, R11.
And then the other question, maybe what JD is thinking is how JD asked earlier, the 135 height restriction, how far south does that come? And is this within that?
No, this site is in Hudson Yards, and I also want to note that for both this site, as we said before, and the Marston Yards, we asked that they be run into the Hudson Yards Special Zoning District, because that brings other flexibility in ways to manage the issue of the location. Like we brought the slaughterhouse into the district, right? So if you want, when these sites get built, they're in the district, they have to pay into the bid, do the various things that are required as part of Hudson Yards. It'd be would be Paul, new sub areas, G1 and G2. Keep on going, run out of an alphabet, yeah. So now
JD had his hand up.
Sorry, Chief.
Just a random thought, is there in the narrative that we write, is there any efficacy to saying these are closer to public transportation? For instance, in Marshland Yard, there's a subway stop on 35th. Should be a subway stop on 42nd at some point.
41st.
41st.
Yeah.
So is that another argument?
I think I'll be dead by that point, just saying.
Is that another argument for high density? Because it's close to transportation.
I think we could put that,
No.
It is.
it is,
It's the argument that City VS used.
I think we should have a section in our narrative that speaks to high density district, for high density districts. Which we don't have, it didn't exist.
So this raises an interesting question, Joe, about the transportation issues in that station. Would this be eligible for a transit-oriented development bonus?
No.
Because if they add in that subway
Hey,
station.
Paul, I think I'm gonna bring everyone down to reality check.
Yeah,
That subway station,
We're having a discussion.
there is no subway station. There is not a cavern for the subway station. Both were eliminated. The cavern alone cost $500 million. And that was when the subway was being built.
And before tariffs.
Before
yeah, but they went away today.
They were gone.
Yeah, it's like, it's one thing to eliminate, it was one thing to eliminate the finishes on the station. When the cavern was eliminated, you're basically creating a mining operation underground for one stop.
So even if the train station is not
Right.
reality at the moment, we do need to advocate for transportation, whatever that transportation is in the future, however we imagine it, maybe it's, whatever. But I do think that noting the intersections of these very large spots, how they would, particularly if we're advocating for more housing, how they would need more transit
And I would
access.
also, because this is my thought, has been reminded of this, Joe, is on the other side, there's a transit bonus on the Marshalling Yards, because it's close enough to the 7 stop at Hudson Yards. Is there any improvement? You know what I'm saying? Like
There are no improvements needed in the 34th Street and 7th Avenue subway station, which cost $1 billion. Okay, It is one of the highest functioning and best maintained subway stations in the entire system.
Are always closed on weekends and weeks a lot, but.
And if we start talking about transit bonuses, then we take away the funding for the affordable housing. We split it, and I think we want the affordable housing to be the maximum.
Well, maybe that's something we put in the narrative too.
And I would add ferries to the narrative as well, because,
That's a good point. We haven't, we haven't talked a lot about ferries on the board. Honestly, and I don't mean this as a joke, since Jeffrey left the board, he's been a strong advocate for ferries. And this is, both those locations are prime locations to really advocate for a clean, good way of transportation to take cars off the streets for those people who are anti-car.
or we just want to be able to get to work quickly to the financial district.
Yeah, access to the river.
You don't
the
have to
ferry
far.
can tap, access across the west side. Yeah, but there should also be access from the west side to the east side with the ferries, so.
But even before we go too far afield on ferries, I just want to say if both of these sites actually came to fruition, this is 5,401 units, putting City TS of shame in our district. To shame.
But on the conditions for each site is to put connections to the Hudson River Park. I mean, the crossing the West Side Highway there is.
Again, we're far afield from our subject, but I believe we have consensus. We want to put a narrative in about very high density districts, because that's a new thing, right?
Definitely.
Does it look like when we correct the numbers, that this is a site, we have the very high density at the FAR, at the R11? Is there a general yes? You get the yes, with reservations?
What are we talking about in terms of the height? It would be similar to the Silver Towers, just to the north of it. But that's
Again, the phrase here is establish a very high density height cap.
What is the FAR on, because you would know this, on Silver Towers, what is that?
12.
Well, like, again, I kind of feel like that generates not.
Right, but FAR 12, with a huge amount of open space on the site,
Yeah, that's true.
it was not London Terrace.
But I would say that huge amount of space, let's say huge amount of light and air into the neighborhood. And one commodity that this section of Hell's Kitchen has going for it is sky. And once we give up that sky, we don't ever get it back.
So
Would it be useful to say, because they do this, they say within the context of the surrounding neighborhood. So if it's a 12 on 42nd to the Silver Stream, then anything that goes up should be context of that, not higher.
I will say that the context immediately, someone will say it's Hudson Yards. That's the problem.
So I'm saying we should define the context.
Correct.
And not let them define the context.
Or again, recognizing that there are areas where we're more flexible about density and height in general, is to say that our community context was towards the north, right? So that at least provides a potential respondent to an RFP, an idea of they're looking for this as a potential envelope as compared to Hudson Yards.
And we did that with our discussions, Paul, with the EDC about the important side. We did say, narrow the context. Don't expand it, narrow it.
Yeah, their answer was, well, it's all like 42nd Street. No, it's not.
Right.
And so also, Brian, I want to note, Silver Towers has interior roadways, streets. These are all things that they just took all that FAR, concentrated into two skinny towers. That if this were figured out in a way that, like, for example, the MTA, this school site, there could be a huge rooftop open space there.
Yeah.
Because there has to be a big open space, big base for these buses to be there, right? And these are difficult sites to do. You have to have a bus garage built. Where do they go in the meantime? How does that happen? Does it get done in stages? I don't know.
I mean, I think many of the considerations you can port over from the Javits marshalling yard conversation relating to walling off and to ensuring that the, view corridors are preserved, that there are not excessive shadows in Hudson River Park.
I guess Joe raises a really good point, though. It's sort of how that density is distributed across the site.
It's a shared cubes.
Yeah, as opposed to stashing all the cubes into one tower.
Right.
I just had a great idea for our, for the presentation. you could have sugar
Yes.
cubes for each of these that demonstrate the preferred use of the maximum FAR that we're talking about in the plan. Think about that, little sugar
Well, you
cubes.
know, we actually could, as a second process to this, do some modeling, like we did in CBS, that sort of says, like, rough idea of Nancy's. Let's go to our next site, which is the Voorhees one.
But I
Again,
do think we should be clear, because I do feel like
Yes.
maybe there are people saying slightly different things here. It does sound like some people are saying, yeah, as long as we all agree in context, that nothing's gonna be taller than what we already have.
I didn't hear that.
Like, yeah, we can't do that.
I didn't hear that.
All right, good.
No, not at
I
all.
just wanna make sure, because I think we all know deep down, like, there are gonna be something taller than we already
Exactly,
have.
but
Yeah,
the thing
okay.
of it is, you can have 12 much taller, or you can have 4 like in balance.
Absolutely. Okay,
So,
but I just, yeah.
Let's go back to the Hunter College for a second. So I forgot, Paul, when you talked about this a moment ago, the reason I said this particular block in Hudson Yards rezoning was specifically designated as a transitional block between the high density on 42nd Street and the low density on 40th Street. Just like we have to the north, we have the same thing. We step down in high density, 42nd Street corridor, and then 43rd, 44th steps down. So it's a transition block. So yes, I think we can be flexible on the FAR that's there today, but not go to very high density because it was never meant to that. It's meant to have a much more transition.
To that point, perhaps we recommend a density here that might be higher than it is now, but is lower than 15 or 18. Because like, you know, map this as an R10 rather than an R11 or something like that.
No, that R10 is 42nd Street.
So, or R9, but you know, but
Right.
map it so it's contextual,
Uh-huh.
and we recommend the mapping, because they're gonna come in and they're gonna say. make
I'm
this
just
an
whining because D63 is an R9. That's the whole point.
Yeah, I'm just concerned they're gonna come in and say this needs to be at 18.
Of course.
And if we show them an incremental increase, they might come back and say, okay, well, we'll go with that.
So then, Paul, why don't we do a follow-up to this meeting, look at the various new zones, how they're set up,
Yeah,
and see what can be that compromise in between.
great.
But again, this is a prime site to be redeveloped. Now, how do people, it's 10 years, 10 years empty,
Oh, that's right.
10 years
Yeah, yeah,
empty,
yeah, yeah.
Settled Bridge,
Okay.
all kinds of public
Yeah.
safety issues around.
This doesn't look nice, which is usually not a concern.
And you would think the covenant house, with everything now done, would really want to see this, you know. We really want to see this fixed up. It's
Right, everybody does, because there's a new bus terminal, everything being built across from it, ramps and everything. Now, the next one is the parole office, right? Now, here's a shocking thing. West 40th Street between 8th and 9th, the zoning is an FAR 18.
Next.
Doesn't have a page number on it, but it's next,
No, it's
next.
nice.
There we go.
That's
we
a
go.
new one.
Yeah, no,
One back, sorry.
one back. So, again, now,
Oh,
controlled by the Department of Corrections, right?
That's
Opposite
totally
Port
right.
Authority bus terminal. It is the parole office, right? Well, let's approach the state, talk about this. We have an existing mapping of an FAR of 18, it's part of Hudson Yards, the community board recommended the 18 FAR at this location, the distributed bulk around. But we never had an ability to use it for residential until now. So here's the question, we put it out there as 2 FAR, because the parole office needs space. We can't put an agency out of business, we have to accommodate them as part of it.
Really? Can't we put them out of business?
So,
I'm gonna here's the thing about putting residential on that site.
Yep.
With the parole office, that is an issue for
Safety.
safety. I mean, I would love to see that be a residential site. There has to be some.
I just wanna note that the parole office, over decades, doesn't even exist and is not even seen and has never been a public safety issue. It is shocking.
Yeah, most people don't even know that's what it is.
And do you know why? Because people on parole are very careful about having an incident in front of the parole office.
Yeah.
No, not
I
that.
was gonna say, it's
I've
more
actually
of a
met with them many
perception
years
issue.
ago. It was like, they're very low, key, low impact.
I recall, yeah, I can't
Now, if
remember
it was a police station, it'd be a different story. So this, I don't know if these, so it cannot be an 18 FAR full, because it needs to be 2 reserved. So I'll do some double checking. It's not that large a site. I think the calculations are a little bit off, but in general, for the use, how do people feel?
But I thought you said, I'm sorry, I'm confused, but it's 40th Street. I thought you said it's above 42nd Street is, like, I thought you were saying below 42nd Street, we don't want it to be super high.
That's between 9th and 10th. This between 8th and 9th has an entirely different set
Times
of
two.
zoning.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Florida cars.
Like we're talking, this is
South of Florida.
FAR of 18 on this one block, which we used it to redistribute. Well, the Hudson Yards wanted to build north, just to save some of the blocks to the south. And then you go further south, it's FAR of 18.
And you go even north, you have the Orion, you have, the
That's an FAR of 12.
So I saw, Joe, you would know this, it's just 40th Street, that's 18.
It is just 40, it is just the south side of 40th Street between 8th and 9th.
Because
This is the
block
community
south
block
is
perhaps.
12.
Huh?
Or because
The block to the south is 12,
And they're
12
still
to 13.
saying 12 in MSX.
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah, it is just, and it's the block front of 8th Avenue
right,
that is 18.
right.
And all those stores, the bank and everything.
Right.
It's not like the highest,
How many
collection
collections
block.
Right.
Yeah, say what? Brian?
Right.
So
No,
is,
it isn't.
is there any possibility of and the reason why I'm asking is, subsidy for this one, because just picking up a little bit on the point that Brian's making about the fact that it's a parole office. And maybe folks that may not be familiar with the fact that there aren't really issues there, that may deter a developer from wanting to go ahead and develop on top of a parole office that they're gonna continue to have there. What if this were 100% affordable?
How do people feel about that?
No, but it isn't. This closes market and 100% affordable, but specifically thinking about populations that may need housing that we want to focus on in this community, whether it's supportive or whether it's senior housing, et cetera. Something where we know that we would be able to add extra eyes and extra care in a location that maybe a developer may be a little iffy about. I'm just throwing that out.
Gotcha.
I just don't know if that.
Brian,
I'm just gonna respond to that. There's Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan.
Okay, we're going somewhere. Just sit down, go for the ride.
For me to understand, that's all.
Everybody just hang in there. We're on the Wrath of Khan, go ahead.
Khan is banished to a planet that is not sustainable for the population. And they lash out. I'm sorry for going off the rails on that. This is not where you want to put a vulnerable population.
That's true.
This area is loaded with services for vulnerable populations, and this is the problem. that this area-
Support doesn't necessarily.
No.
mean- hold on.
I'm gonna
It
fight
could
you
be
on
people
this.
that have, mobility issues, it could be seniors, et
This
cetera.
is right on 8th Avenue. This is the heart of the 8th Avenue corridor. This is not where you put people with mobility issues or are struggling with anything. You need people who can fend for themselves here. I mean, truthfully, this is like not a healthy spot from.
But I also wanna know, we have hotels along this entire block,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And one of the hotels just retraded and became upmarket. Because there's a need for more hotel rooms.
I think Brian is right, though, if we're talking about today or next year, but I think if we're talking about 10 years from now or 15 years from now, I do see that the area would be different,
Perhaps,
given what's happening.
perhaps because maybe in 15 years from now, when the bus terminal across the street is completed
Yeah.
and the tower on 40th and 8th Avenue is completed, then it might be a very different neighborhood.
Yeah.
But to put a vulnerable population there now would be unfair to them and unfair to the.
Can I just try to reconcile these 2 points of view?
And
Maybe,
Travis has his.
sorry, I wanted to say that maybe because it's a smaller site, we just put out there that we'd like it 100% affordable.
Sure.
Just put it out there, because maybe there's a state program that could work on that, not for a vulnerable
Got it.
population, but just. Because it's not gonna create that many units, so with this trouble for 77 units, as opposed to 257. Maybe there's a way the state can step up to say, between Department of Correction and their housing, and the state housing department. This could be 100% affordable. How's that for?
I like it. And what did Travis want to say?
Travis?
I like Joe's solution. Joe, you just split the baby perfectly there, because I was about to side with Brian on the vulnerable population piece. I just went to a training about human trafficking, and a lot of people get dropped off right in that spot, right where we're talking about, according to the training I went to today. So But if we're going to split the baby and go with your idea, I like it, Joe.
How do you feel about that? Is there a
When-
general?
You're saying 100% affordable, so this office, parole office would have to relocate.
No,
No.
no.
That's not maybe temporary.
Two-story.
This would be a combined project with the parole office done by a private developer, but instead of that private developer just building market rate and affordable housing, the state would incentivize by providing some capital subsidy, to build 100% affordable housing. And the parole office must come back to the state. It is under the Department of Corrections.
So the two FARs, so, parole office, the remaining is residential, and the remaining is remaining residential is 100% affordable. So instead of having 77 affordable units, you have 257 affordable units.
I like it.
Yeah.
Anybody else like it?
You don't have to
I
go
like
get
it, I have some
yes.
reservations, but I like.
As a pitch.
Yeah, I think
Yes.
it's fine.
I would just note that, like, there's openness to, like, our pitch is 100% affordable, open to other
Right.
That's what I would say. I would just
breakdowns
like-
on the site.
It doesn't have to be. I
Well,
mean,
we-
that would be our preference, but any development there would be lovely. But
Well, and that includes some sort of deed restriction on the
Exactly.
units.
Correct.
Permanently affordable.
Yes.
They're always gonna be, ESD is
Now,
permanently
now
affordable.
we're all
They're all permanently ESD.
and 485.
So let's go to the next page down.
Oh, wait, are we have consensus? We don't-
Yeah, I got a sense of consensus. Okay, next. Next slide is Port Authority.
Rachel, if you want to add anything at any.
I'm
point,
sorry,
throw
yes, please,
yourself
Rachel,
in.
yeah.
I
Next,
think all things considered, I think that's acceptable. Thanks for
next page.
checking.
See the big red
Thanks,
X?
Rachel.
This site that we identified.
Go back one to the big red.
Go back one, yes, it's there right there. We identified this site for affordable housing. This is now gonna be a temporary entrance to the temporary terminal. And it is going to be part of the community facility and part of the permanent terminal. So that's done and finished. But during the course, next slide. During the course of the negotiations, the community board identified 3 sites for affordable housing. None of them were agreed to by the Port Authority. However, I think it's important we put those sites now in this plan and keep them, because like anything else, you put them out there and you keep hitting on them. The Port Authority is the only agency in the state that does not believe it has an affordable housing. Doesn't have to respond for affordable housing needs in the state. So those 3 sites are as follows. The vent building on West 41st Street and 9th Avenue on the northeast corner, which is due to be subsumed into the port when it gets rebuilt. It's a matter of cost. The next one, next please. This is the 445 West 40th Street. It is currently under a part of the ramp. It's on the northwest corner of Dyer and 40th Street. Those ramps will be removed as part of the realignment of the ramps. And, huh? And there will be a site that is open to the sky on all sides, which is a perfect site, and they refuse to talk about it at all. And the next one, by the way, this puts these units, these at 100% affordable. And if we also adjust the FAR there, it would be more.
I was gonna ask, are we proposing adjusting the FAR there?
I think since we did it, it's right, it's adjacent to Hunter, so we should do that. I was like, right.
So Joe, I want to ask about this third site here.
Oh, that's, I'm gonna get to you, 1 second.
Okay.
So anyway, people understand that the first one is in the high density zone, FAR 12, that exists. Second one in that E63, that medium density zone. And now it's the third one, which is on West 33rd Street. It's right opposite this building, across the street, and it encompasses also the depressed portion of Dyer Avenue. This site could be developed in 2 ways. There could be an extension over Dyer Avenue, or the bulk could all be transferred. Once one zoning lot and just used on the at-grade site. That at-grade site was acquired by the Port Authority for access to the region's core. That's the tunnel project that was canceled. That was a vent building location. They own it and they refuse to make it available for affordable housing, saying they must use it for construction trailers. I'm not kidding. So I think we go back to this. This is in a high density zone. It's an FAR of 13. And for a moment, imagine that a lot of the development rights over the depressed area are concentrated onto the at-grade area. And we looked at this, roughly 503 apartments. And we asked for this, during those negotiations, to be 100% affordable. So that's This is a new section. These 3 slides replace the one we had. We learned a lot of information, things changed during those negotiations.
Oh.
I'm gonna go to Katie and then Paul.
But it sounds like you're saying that these slides would replace the other one, but
Yes,
you're saying that we would still be revising these slides, if I understand it correctly, because these slides are not calling for any additional FAR, but I think you're saying we would be asking for additional FAR.
only on the one on the mid-block on 40th Street. The vent building is ready as 12 FAR. And it comes out, it's a narrow site, so it gives you 50 units at 12 FAR. And that's what exists today.
All right, so we're only changing one of these slides.
Yes. Nellie, go back to the first one. Go back. And again,
There we
right. So that look, sorry, one more forward. This is an existing vent building. It is like 30 by 80 or something. It's a very small site. It's in the current high density zone, like where the Orion is, Dolores, it's the same density. But because it's such a small footprint, it doesn't get you a lot of units. And it's in the Clinton Special Zoning District, and it's specifically at the FAR of 12.
All right, so you're saying that we would change that number on this slide from 12 to.
No, this stays as is. We have there was never a plan to change the Clinton Special Zoning perimeter area to a higher density district.
Okay.
But the next one, you see
Okay,
now,
this one.
this is the one that is in Hudson Yards in that medium density transition district.
Okay.
And we made a note on Voorhees and on Hunter right to the west.
Right.
So we make that note about flexible on the FAR.
Okay, because right now, oh, this is just at 7.5, that's what it says on there.
That's right.
So we would be changing this slide.
Right, we would make the same note about flexibility in the FAR.
And would you go up to 15 on this one?
It's adjacent to Hunter.
So it's the same.
Yeah.
Just, it's like, that's the thing, it's like, how do we, if Paul, if you want a 60-story building on mid-block, then you have to say it. I think we're trying to figure out how to balance where the density goes.
I just need to think through it some more.
Exactly, that's what we should start further before we publish.
Wait, can we go to the next slide? There was something I wanted.
Yes, the next one. Next slide. Okay, now this one, sorry.
Yeah,
there you go.
I see the map on top where the red dot is, isn't that the?
That's the wrong map.
Okay, thank you.
There's a lot of these
That
things
was
where
little-
you get a lot of copy and paste, try to get it ready for everybody.
So
Yes.
on the bottom, what exactly am I looking at? What street is this right here?
You're like,
Across the street.
if you left the
It's right
front
here.
door of this
It's right
building,
here.
it's right to the north.
Wait, that's not a school?
No.
That is the school. This is west of the school.
that's
Yeah.
cool.
Right
So,
past
Thank
it.
you.
School, yeah. If you guys walk to that
Oh.
window, you can see. the
Thank
We
site.
can do
Thank you. I see it now.
So-
Class
so-
trip.
Right, let's just
Thank you.
step back for a second. The time is pretty good. The Port Authority lots encompass at-grade and below-grade roadways, in this case, at-grade land. The portion on the right side is an at-grade piece of land that was acquired for that ventilation building for the project that didn't happen. The portion on the right, on the left side, is a below-grade roadway. And therefore, all on one zoning lot, you take all those sugar cubes and move it anywhere you want. And we
Okay.
looked at how many sugar cubes could be moved. And it got to a very large building of 503.
Okay, on the right side, we're not talking about doing anything around the road, we're talking about the right side.
There might be a little bit of cantilevering over.
Okay, whatever,
Yeah,
okay.
exactly.
So
Yes.
I want to ask about
And
this.
it currently has an FAR of 13.
Right, so I think that we can, is going back to the Port Authority bus terminal replacement plan, that CB4 endorsed, that the Hell's Kitchen South Coalition did. There was an effort to maintain, that through block of open space under the aspiration to deck over and have, a green beltway extend north. If we were to stack those sugar cubes on the at-grade section, I'd be very much in favor of that, and I don't know if there's a way to tailor it to do that. Also, my understanding with that lot, and I don't know if this has changed, the portion to the west that abuts the existing building there, isn't there a necessary easement on that side of the building?
No, that is,
That's Port Authority
no,
lot.
that's Port Authority owned, it's Alice's garden, it's a community garden, right, I expect that to stay.
And then on the north side by 34th Street, there's that one very thin building.
That is not owned by the Port Authority.
That's not owned by the Port Authority?
Believe me, I spend more time on this particular site than I ever want to do in my life.
Okay. So is there a way to sort of craft a recommendation that supports moving the developer, obviously it's the full site, so it gets all the sugar cubes, but to make sure that it's built on the at-grade portion?
I think we should make that note.
Yeah.
But again, these are things that came up during the course of negotiations we didn't achieve, but as we always do, we don't achieve them today, we achieve them sometime tomorrow. Any people are okay with these additions, these Port Authority sites?
Yeah, I mean, these are ones that you guys during the working group have discussed ad nauseum, and so we know that they have been vetted for the potential. It's just Port Authority does not have in their mandate to provide housing.
And my answer to that is yet. So let's go to page 118.
118.
118. Yes.
Okay.
So here's a map. This is our federally controlled sites.
Jim, skipped over this section. There's a map on page 117, which,
No.
Not in this presentation.
oh.
Is it different?
118?
Well, what's the map on?
This is page 1.
A second ago, there's just a map which the page numbers.
The page numbers are screwed up.
Oh,
I figured it out.
It was page one,
Oh,
page
okay.
114.
It was page 114 in the presentation. I don't know if you have it here on the PowerPoint.
What is it a map of?
What is the map of?
What are the adjacent page numbers?
Yeah.
Sorry about that, Joe.
It's all right.
Oh, go back. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, it's 114 on the presentation.
Oh, it's
but that
114 on the
means nothing at the
presentation.
Yeah, but what is the page that precedes it?
What is it?
97 on
We'll get,
the
yeah, we haven't gotten that far along in the presentation.
okay.
Okay, got it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
no, it's out of order.
Sorry, I didn't realize.
Okay, so Nellie, so here we are, federally owned sites, and here's the surprise, folks. We have a new federally owned site in our district. Hello? We have a new federally owned site in our district. The Georgetown site, as part of the part of the Gateway project, Amtrak has actually purchased the site from Georgetown. They have sold it outright at the fee. So now we have a public federal agency that owns a huge development site in our district. We propose to include that, to start that conversation off, even though we know it's going to not be available for quite some time.
Wait, hold on, what am I missing? Why did Amtrak buy it?
Because it is used for staging for construction for the Gateway Tunnel project.
Oh.
So let's
the
go,
western end of Douglas and Lalazarian.
there is no, that block, go to the next page, sorry. This, everyone's seen before, this is the overbuild of the post office, still stays the same. Hopefully the post office will be here when we get to this project, next. Now, this map we've had in here for a long time. The site, the black between 30th and 29th Street is Douglaston and Lalazarian. Originally, there was a rezoning for the whole block between 29th and 30th. Georgetown pulled back and said they didn't want to proceed at this time. Since that time, there was a license agreement negotiated between Amtrak and Georgetown to use the entire site, all in red, it's quite a large site, for Gateway Tunnel, construction, staging, and work. And then the street's been closed to the western portion of 29th, right? Subsequently, I was able to find out that Georgetown sold the site to Amtrak because it was cheaper somehow for Amtrak to not pay, however the deal worked, they sold it. So that means we now have a different public agency, Amtrak, like the post office, federally controlled. That has a large site in our district that will become available in the future.
And Amtrak isn't interested in putting something there, it's literally bought it just
It is
for
construction
safety.
staging.
Once the construction
Yeah.
of the tunnel is completed.
I mean, and there is a vent building on the one corner of that serves the Gateway Tunnel, but that is a minor footprint on this site.
So we're planting the seed,
Yeah, definitely.
like we planted the seed for a lot of these that actually been completed.
Right. So I'm assuming no one has objections, including the Amtrak site.
I have no objections with the Amtrak side.
Oh,
So,
I'm sorry, yes, Rachel?
Carrie.
Carrie, yes, sir.
Yeah, I just, there's been a request that that has kind of been informally denied to build above the ventilation, you know, proposed ventilation building. So I don't know, Joe, if this is accounting for that as well.
The ventilation building has probably a 50 by 60 footprint on the whole site. This is a huge site. It's at least
So,
300 feet.
you know, I guess the question I have is, and sorry, like I'm no architect by any means, but like if we're talking about the ventilation site as a part of this property, do we think of it as a whole thing and the ventilation site somehow sits underneath like they have done in the past?
Yeah, this is analogous to Site K. Site K has a major ventilation
Right,
building for
right.
the number 7 line, and it gets incorporated into the development. The slaughterhouse has Lincoln tunnel tubes going under it, and it's being built above. So we are infrastructure kings over here. We have to figure out how to build around through and such. It's not. Yeah, I think it's.
So I guess what
physically
I'm
not-
saying is you know, do we want to recommend, and this is so brand new, like this,
Yeah.
you know, what's coming up with this ventilation site. We just had last month a presentation by Gateway. Christine has proposed that we should try to build housing above this and redo their plan, you know, ask them to suggest that they rethink their, I don't know if you remember, like their sort of architectural weird
Yes, yeah.
plan. But so should we be considering the whole site with that as an underbuilt, if that's the right word?
Well, I think recommendation would be that we say the whole site should be used for, as a part of our affordable housing plan, and it must incorporate the ventilation building. So these
Right.
are very sort of open, because we know the ventilation building does not have a huge footprint on this site. It is not some massive structure. It may be massive in its footprint going up, but it's not going to be, you know, 300 feet long.
Right. But right now
have-
it is sort of what it is, like, and which might be fine, and then there's open space around it. So I guess the idea or the thinking was, is there an opportunity to try to create more affordable housing on
Yeah.
top of it?
Yeah, I think we should probably, we do this, we should say, do it and bring up the slaughterhouse site and bring up the Site K as a way that they can be surrounded, because those are totally analogous to this, right?
Well, I mean, but we want to put that on the slide. I mean, I think Carrie's point is probably can be incorporated in slide by mentioning, you know, that there's a note that this happens to have a venting site, which could potentially be developed as well, and then leave it open. Because again, it's about a conversation.
Because this slide actually is just a copy and paste of the original Georgetown slide, but now it's Amtrak, yes.
But it's still the same density, whether you incorporate the architectural design into the vent, or you use that 50-60 space for the vent and then build the other housing. I don't see a need to separate out ventilation space, because the FAR is encapsulated on the whole site, and how an architect or a development team comes in and figures out whether to incorporate the ventilation piece of it or not. I don't know that we're gonna gain any more units, because it's the
Well,
same density.
the only thing I would say, Paul, is that right now we've already been presented plans. Chelsea Land Use has been presented plans that do not incorporate the ventilation site into that. What you're saying.
But is it the same density FAR?
No, what she's saying is how it's designed may make it impossible for housing to be built around it, right, Karen?
Correct. Yes, and it is like a standalone, it's like a standalone structure that would be very difficult to build. It has like, it's like a, I don't know, Paul. I mean, Joe, you were there. So it's like it's a very specifically designed structure that would make it impossible right now to
Carrie,
build above it.
Why don't we talk a little bit further after this meeting to figure out how we can put some language in?
And I think we should pull in Christine, Joe, to okay, yeah.
But I have another question on this site.
Yes, correct.
Since it's federally owned now, instead of privately owned, is this one that's worth doing 100% affordable?
Good point. I like that.
Well, that's fascinating.
We'd have to wait for another administration.
But we're gonna, the construction, even on this administration.
Yeah.
Wait for another administration.
Well, we have to.
It will, unless they decide to dispose of it to a third party, which is a thing that the federal government is presently
Oh,
doing.
Right, but they can't dispose of it because
Before
they are in construction.
utilize it.
But if it is a federal site and we do a request for 100% affordable, and now when it's disposed of, they sort of designate it as affordable.
Is there any objection to putting that in here as a stake in the ground?
But I don't know if there's like a as clear of a funding source for that.
My answer is not today.
Yeah, there could be some.
And when is Gateway done?
That, I'm not putting it at energy out of the universe.
Okay,
So
all right.
can I just ask a quick question?
Yes.
I thought we had said that the FAR in the site right below was gonna be higher than 10 or 12 or
No.
whatever.
No, this
Okay.
block we rezoned Douglaston and Lozarian to 12.
Okay, so we're saying just 12.
Yes.
Okay.
Because this is a transition out of Chelsea from Hudson Yards. That was a very important thing on the block between one to the east, that it became down to 12 from the high density.
I think Paul's suggestion for asking or for targeting 100% affordable on this site makes sense.
So can I get some nods on that
Yeah.
from the folks? Carrie, you're okay with that? Travis, Rachel? Travis, Rachel,
Marty?
Marty?
Yeah, we were doing thumbs up in case you couldn't see.
Well, you gotta make a noise, otherwise you won't show up. That's the problem.
Oh,
Okay,
Everyone gave you thumbs up.
we all
All
gave
of
you
us.
thumbs up.
all right, thanks a lot.
Thumbs up.
Yes, so that's right, you're working. So now we're to the preservation section. The only change we made to the housing preservation section is next, sorry, I apologize, pages 114. 114.
There were some blank pages though there when I looked at it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so it's one of the pages in here, there's
Nice.
a site that wasn't captured as
Give me clues,
as residential, protected residential.
give me clues.
36 and 9th Avenue, it's gray. All the other stuff along 9th Avenue is the building you and I were talking about.
All right, so
I
I
think
just
it's
want,
on a different.
I just want to note that we're putting here for the first time, the maps that were developed are presented to Clinton Land Use that list all residential structures protected from demolition, which we haven't had before.
Right.
So, and there was still a little bit of work in progress on those being tweaked.
Yeah.
Looking through. We have the numbers of units for West Chelsea that are affected, buildings and numbers of units. We have the numbers of units for Garment Center, we have the numbers of units for Hudson Yards. We are still doing the tabulation for Clinton Special. But it actually will give us for the first
So
time.
that's why there was nothing there. Okay,
Right,
that-
right, yeah, because it could, we'd have it, it's counting so many buildings and so many units. So this is just, we always got a section about illegal demolition, and it stays the same.
If we could just go to the one that says page 117.
Page 117,
Yeah, if we look at.
they're all saying page 114.
Great.
Can you tell me what the map is, what the map is?
It's the one that's zoomed in on Dyer Avenue and 9th Avenue between in the 30s.
Yes,
I think it's this one.
it's Hudson Crossing does not show us residential.
Hudson Crossing doesn't show as residential and also right here, that building.
Yes,
Is
if you could just do the email stuff, because, yeah, because these are.
You have email stuff.
Yeah. All right, I'll
Okay.
just to Max doing it, right? Okay, great.
So now we are on to the next section, and Carrie, please add in here. This is, keep going, up to page 121, 121. Okay. Now, page 122. I think this.
Are
is
you
our-
calling these illegal demolition?
No, I'm on Chelsea Nation.
Oh, is this a different section
Good
though?
though, good
Are we
though.
in a new section?
We're in a new section called Chelsea Nightshade.
Yeah, I think
We-
you need
we
a, you
take it
need a
out.
new blue page, Joe, because we were in illegal demolition, so,
Yeah, so we have taken out. The one slide about the Chelsea Elliott thing, and I just highlight this in yellow to say, we have to rewrite something that is very carefully worded for this housing plan. And I didn't want to hazard to do that. I wanted to think about it a little bit more, but is everyone in agreement? We have to write a very carefully nuanced thing, because this is gonna come out before we take a position on the whole deal. It's, I'm getting nods, right?
Yeah, so I don't understand that. So you're saying the yellow language.
It's what's been in there for years,
And it's gonna go,
but we have to have some language, so we can't make believe it doesn't exist.
right?
So any thoughts about the elements that might be added in that, and then I'll work on the crafting of it. Go around the room. Start with Dolores. Besides, like, only help.
You know, obviously, the real sticky point is that we haven't taken a position
Right.
and it's
Yeah.
very contentious. I think that the safest thing to say is that these buildings have been in discussion for some development, which remains to be seen which way it goes, recognizing there are a lot of stakeholders that.
And maybe say like to preserve or rebuild, like just like a super like wide open.
Yeah, I mean,
Just because
I
we-
was trying to even avoid
No, no.
that. I just said that.
We cannot be, we cannot be so,
Coy,
yeah, it can't be coy.
state facts.
Yeah, just fact, like, and there's a division like that's what it is, and it's
Someone
under
who
discussion,
did this.
blah, 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 whatever.
This
What
is-
else do you have to say?
Sorry.
Yes,
Didn't Jessica have a slide in the presentation?
You didn't go to that.
That said, here's the next steps, and I think it was all exactly on one side, purely factual,
I remember,
just.
yeah,
Take that
let's look at
purely-
that,
take the purely
that's great,
factual
yeah,
side.
because it was very
That's
much like, it was factual and neutral.
That's it, yeah, put it in.
But you understand why I just put it in yellow for now?
I do.
I didn't want to leave it all.
Karen?
Yeah,
Yes,
I
Karen.
have a crazy idea. This whole presentation is about, correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, but it's about what we want, right? Like,
Yes,
so if in terms of affordable housing on these two campuses, we've often talked about the fact that we feel that the affordability of any new construction is insufficient compared to market rate. So would this be an opportunity for us to say what we want? You know, like we want 60% affordability or 100% affordability, subtracting the cost of development. So
I think,
sorry, let me be really clear to everybody else.
yeah.
Some of the main sticking points on the proposals, the development proposals as they stand, are that NYCHA, as the landowners, will be profiting, potentially profiting off of any and all of the new development that happens, not the replacement development, but the new development that happens on the campuses, and that once sort of they pay related for for being the developers, they will put all of that money into the NYCHA coffers and be able to use them citywide. I say citywide. Let me say that differently because I keep getting pinged on that. They'll be able to use them as they wish, not necessarily in our community. So that's been a big issue for us. Like either the profit should go back to Chelsea Hell's Kitchen, CB4, NYCHA first, like the community, the people. That basically Chelsea shouldn't be funding NYCHA
elsewhere in the city.
NYCHA elsewhere in the city where they have, been really terrible landlords.
Didn't count on the
So
boxes.
that's the first thing. And the second thing is that I sort of lost my train. Sorry, it's late for me. I'm just like, so the point I guess I'm saying is that should we be saying what we want? Like, so if there is a profit for NYCHA, it either has to come back into our community or go to affordability. So instead of a 20% or 30% affordability, band, it should be a 60%. So if we're gonna build all these buildings, they should be affordable. That's all I have to say.
And the excess funds for.
Right, but let me just say, I think, one of the things I'm concerned about, Carrie, the more
I know it's
specificity-
confusing and it's like political and all that stuff, but like that's what we want, right? Like we want, if there is new development, we want it to be as as at the highest rate of affordability that it can be.
I agree with everything you said, but because this is a bone of contention right now, I think, I don't want this plan to get stuck in some language division arguments over what it says. I think
Then-
having just Kevin.
Then
mentioned
maybe
the
it's
fact-
just like TBD, the whole big
Right.
page, honestly,
Well, no,
because
I think factual stuff that Kevin said, the factual things, here's what it is, here's where we are. And it's in the process of discussion, something like that.
Jessica, this slide.
Right.
Marty has his hand up.
Marty, go ahead.
I agree with what you said, Joe, just now. Carrie wrote a letter asking for a lot more information that did not come out in the EIS as I read it. I think there should be a sentence in here acknowledging that we have been asking questions that we have not received answers to, and that our position on this development is in flux.
Let me take Jessica's information, send it around, circulate it, people comment on it, okay? Because I don't want this document to get mired in a very, very difficult process room right now, that's all.
And we'll have plenty of other.
And we're gonna,
opportunities.
and what Kerry just said is I think where we're going in general as a community to say what we want,
Yeah, this is a living, breathing document.
Right.
It's been updated for the last,
10 years,
more than that.
not 2015 first one.
More.
More because it was Christine was chair.
Okay, so it's
And then the
2013,
next update was when I was chair, and then the next update was when Bert was chair.
and we're still the only board that has an affordable housing plan.
Joe, can I say, just
Yes.
point of information, when last we, talked about the great issue of what do our electeds think that they all agree to? And what does the tenant population prefer? The question that I don't think I've heard an answer to anyway is, when was the magical, revelation about building new is so much better than renovation, we don't even need to talk.
And that is a discussion we're gonna have in housing and Chelsea land use for quite the rest of the year.
I fear that if we don't hint at that,
Right.
the electeds are gonna say, well, we already decided it, we're gonna build it, you know.
That's correct, but it's a separate document, not this one.
Got
But
it.
again, I think Paul's point is good here about making sure the language is not leaning in one way or the
Correct.
other. And that the language indicates that we're advocating for housing units. Period, not how they get there.
We're
I guess
gonna look
my
at justice.
my question is, should we be advocating for more housing units? No matter
I
what?
don't think that's,
Or not.
I think it is, that was in this plan originally as the infill sites. We've taken it out. And I think we took out some of the other infill sites already, the last one we took out today. It is just too fraught with dissension right now. And we have a lot of opportunities, right, a lot of what we want coming up, I think.
No, I'm in agreement with Kevin, like, let's just take the factual things that Jessica had on her slide, which was kind of non-controversial.
From the Chelsea Niger, from the Chelsea Niger
And
presentation.
say that the focus for this, you know, like at the bottom, it says 2,056 housing units. Like at below 60% AMI, that's the number we have in the housing plan. Any
That's gonna
additional
stay,
units that come in from the development side, or additional units that come in from the development side.
So I want to commend everybody for hanging in. We have a little bit to go and a lot of it we're gonna cast through because it's not changed, right? The next section, Nellie, go to page 123. That's a blue page, as Kerry called it. Go to next page. And actually, no, go to 125.
I do think you should not put NYCHA Chelsea in that section of
Illegal.
thank
It's
you.
not, no.
It has its own heading.
It has its own
Oh,
heading.
sorry, I missed that page. I'm
Yeah, no,
apologize.
We just flipped through it.
The numbers are screwed up, Kerry, that how the paging is, that has no heading. So this map shows you 420 affordable units, but go to the next page. And please note, these are ones that have expired. And we as a community have not dealt with this, and our state electeds have not dealt with this. We have many, many units that are at risk. That once people move out, they become market rate. But also people being told you're no longer protected, even though they are under rent stabilization. We've seen this in buildings. HCC has worked with a number of building expenses. So I mean, I want to just bring this up. This does not change, but I think we have to take action on this during this year.
Yep.
So are we gonna put something in our plan, like we're gonna take action as a committee on these expiring things?
We're not a committee, the board, I think we want to say what we want to do, and also we want to know, here's how many units are expired.
Yeah.
That can be in the preamble where we're talking.
On the narrative.
The narrative where we're
Gotcha.
talking about the
Yeah.
different types of housing, where we
Right.
mentioned that one of our objectives is to ensure that we are following up on, in particular, the expiration.
Because we can't be concerned about building new affordable housing when we have stuff that's
And
gone through a
we're
process,
yeah.
been fully subsidized through tax subsidies and tax exemptions, and then we're losing it at the same
Joe's
time.
not trying to, when we say take action on this, what would it actually look like?
I have no idea, Kevin. I believe it is lobbying our state officials to come up with a specific legislation to protect these units and provide incentives to continue that there. I'm actually, no, sorry.
Some that exist, but if the, like developers or owners are not utilizing them, perhaps they're not sufficiently well tailored. So there may be a compelling interest to improve upon what currently exists.
Yes,
Clarifying question. These units expire after some number of years, I guess like 30 years or?
no, they are, the terms are all different. Some are 35, some are, yeah, mostly 35.
Okay,
It's
so after
it's the term of the
35
bond.
years, They, or some number, about that, they expire. At that point, they're not legally required to stay affordable, but they are still rent stabilized.
No,
Or-
So some of them have what you would describe as tenure protection, so once a tenant is in there, like if the unit is stabilized or protected until they leave.
so,
But not every single.
no, but let me just clarify. The unit is not protected going forward.
The tenant.
If it's an occupied unit, they are still rent stabilized.
So I live in one, my rent is a certain amount, mine expires, I think it's 2026. If I move out after the expiration, it can go to market.
So my
But no,
question I'm sort of getting at here is, are we asking for new legislation? Or are we asking for enforcement of existing?
there actually is legislation, but it's not, two things. One is, first of all, tenants are misinformed frequently by owners, saying that it's the 35
done.
years, whatever, and you're no longer rent stabilized. And we've seen those notices and had huge issues, and the board's got involved with that, right?
Okay, so we're primarily asking for education and enforcement.
Well,
That's
enforcement,
one
right.
part.
That's one part. The other part is, all the public investments gone in here, we should have continued, if in fact the idea is that we give a tax exemption to maintain affordability, that tax exemption should be extended dramatically. In other parts of the country with tax exempt bonds, the compliance period is 80 years with a tax exemption in place, 80 years. That's very common.
I would say that is the minority, but it certainly exists, it is not.
It's up and down the
state
West
of New
Coast.
York. Yes.
Not in the state, no, in the state of New York, it's not at all. New York is real estate driven, it's not, affordable housing production driven, it just isn't.
Well, that also affects the value of the tax credits and there are other considerations.
Right,
It's
but I'm not
just-
arguing for those folks, I'm arguing for the fact that we're trying to keep it affordable. So
So
this
Joe-
mechanism, okay.
Joe, this
Yes.
is this is a factual slide. Is there any narrative that goes with it? Or is that what
It's-
you're talking about, putting in a narrative?
There is narrative in the first 38 pages, I think we're amplifying that narrative now.
We're talking about, there isn't specific language in the preamble, but we're talking about adding that, Marty, yeah.
Well, there is some, but it's amplifying it, there is something.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just adding a section of continued board actions. And we're separating of all the areas where we're gonna have action, or where we wanna have action, and highlighting this as one where we want to
And
be
also,
vigilant for our community. Yeah, next steps.
Should this go first? Sorry, I mean, if we're saying that we want all this affordable housing, should we first be saying what affordable housing we have that we want to protect?
well, there's always been this section called affordable housing preservation, and it encompassed NYCHA, it encompassed the 421A, and it encompassed the illegal demolition. Those are the three things. If we want to bring the order, we can choose whatever we want. We want to bring this one in that group first, or is NYCHA first? I mean, you can, what are your thoughts, Carrie?
Well, it just seems to me that we go on to suggest so many, so many different sites, like there are existing sites that it just feels like, and I'm sorry, I don't know what if it's 126 or later or earlier, but
Yeah.
that you're 126 pages in and we have these we have affordable housing that is either expiring or is not being, reinstated, or I don't know, but that we should, that feels like that's like a first this, next new.
I think you're feeling a little bit of the plan evolving over all these many years.
Yeah.
This was put in maybe like 3 or 4 years in when someone said, what about the existing apartments?
Yeah.
Right? And
And we
so-
added at the
and
end.
we added at the end because it was put in there.
So I like what Carrie's saying, a narrative that goes from what we have today,
Mhm.
then going to what we've accomplished, that's that history, that 10-year history of what we've actually been able to advocate for and get. And this is what we are now advocating for that's in the pipeline, that type of thing.
I just want to note that as a lead, if this is a plan about producing affordable housing, it's not where you start. Because it's all of those production things that we've figured out, enabled, and pushed through various stages, like spoke to Katie earlier. They have to say that, because that says, here's what this board is about.
Well, except that just like in our letters from the board, like everybody always says, remember, put your ask first, you know what I mean? Like, to Carrie's point, don't make people read 126 pages to figure out what you're asking for.
I think there should be a section to reflect what Carrie's talking about.
Yeah,
Just those categories.
here are our priorities, here's what we're hoping to see. And the reason we're able to come up with these very smart priorities is because of everything, all of our history. We've already done all this work, but we're putting up front now.
Maybe we do some intro slides on the sections that sort of encapsulate the thing, that lays it out. Because that'll give you like a setup almost. Roberta?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sort of agnostic as to if the section goes first, but I think that for the purposes of a community board where we, in almost every single one of the affordable sites, we have some sort of statutory involvement with them, like centering those makes sense. This is like a helpful list, but ultimately we're asking for a single or a set of policy asks surrounding preservation, and
that's what the intro slide to this should say, what
Sure.
are we asking for?
yeah, and then that could also be in the narrative, but I don't necessarily think that it is helpful at it like the front, because ultimately we're trying to get our elected officials to come up with more preservation tools. And that's sort of, it's not about any singular unit or singular.
I think though, it's interesting to have this discussion, hitting on Katie's issue. I think we haven't, the intro to this section is, here's what our ask is. And
The
then,
whole plan should be like,
no, but I mean,
Yeah.
particularly here,
Yeah.
and then this is our supporting data. Our ask is to develop a proper program and plan to extend tax exemptions to preserve affordability for the long term, right? Because that's what the ask is, and we can't let these things be slipping out, or desperately building over here that they're slipping out.
and for those that have slipped out, we
How to
want to
get
make
them back.
sure,
Oh, enforcement.
that there is some, that there are letters going out to the tenants or whatever. We want to make sure that they're protected as much as possible. But yeah, let's just be
Good.
clear everywhere,
That's good. Our next section, go ahead, is page 140. 140? This just explains how the whole HRPT transfer works from Prince River Park along with affordable housing. And you will see some of the same sites reappearing, because it talks about, we don't double count them at all. Yes, Paul?
I don't remember, do we have a map of the designated receiving sites
Oh, of the actual district?
of the actual districts where they
It wouldn't be a map of the sites, it'd be a map of what's eligible sites.
receive?
Gotcha, so it's a map. Got it.
It would be helpful to see where.
Map of the receiving site area, which is the one block.
We have had discussion about, do we want to have the receiving sites be farther afield of Hudson? So we can have higher density housing that's not creating that wall along the
I
Hudson.
think what's important is to say, let's give a map of the map of the location of sites where they can be mapped, and then the few that have been mapped. Just that as a general thing, as a guide, right? So these start to repeat, the Amtrak site, the Douglaston Development site. Keep going, I'm sorry, page down. Page down again. Page down. Page down. That's the Con Ed site, it still stays the same, no change on that, page down. We talked about these already, these are going to be these blended sites, page down. Now, this is DeWitt Clinton North, we've seen this slide already, remember, the plan does not double count these. It just notes this, here are the locations that they can be mapped for HRPT receiving sites. Page down. And that gives you the whole total overall of how it could work.
Maybe just for clarity's sake, on all of these, somewhere in the very bottom, an asterisk saying detailed in the previous section, so that you're indicating what other section it cross references.
Yes, that's good. I made sure they don't double count, but it's take the note right. Okay, let's go down next page. Pro zoning and text amendments. Okay. Now, page down. Let's skip through all of these. All the Chelsea stuff stays the same, nothing has changed. So go through all the Chelsea plan section. All the way through, keep going. Okay, Hudson Yards. Now here's our first additional change. We have already talked about some of the very high density sites. Go to page 150. This is similar to our current and proposed. Current, this was in the plan. We asked for the, just to refresh everybody's memory, there's this weird super commercial district that limits residential to an FAR of 6. For years, they've asked for that to be lifted to an FAR of 12. So the proposal is twofold. One, to both lift it now not to 6, but to 18. And to extend Hudson Yards District to pick up the sites we talked about, Quill and Marshall Yards. So next slide. I'm sorry, go back one. Go back one again. So you see it has certain sites. No, forward, apologize, forward. Yeah. It goes from A3, A4, and A5. These are all sub-districts of Hudson Yards and another portion of A3. And it's 12 FAR and 1,400 low and moderate income units. Next page. This now says, take that, also pick up G1 and G2 are marshalling yards in Quill, and go down to 34th Street. And all of those, put it at an FAR of 18. Except for G1 and G2, every site is between 33 FAR and 21.6 FAR. So there's no upzoning needed. It is a text change to allow the new R11 and R12 regulations to be mapped here. So there's no, we've asked for this, we're just extending it. This would now produce 2,124 low-income units, affordable units. This is an amazing change. So we've talked about this for years. We're now extending it and incorporating the City of Yes changes, not City of Yes, the FAR cap lift into this to make it even more dense. And where do we want density? In the friggin' dense area of the district, obviously. Okay, how do you feel about that? Yes.
Generically, I'm great with this, actually. Generically great. One of the things that we talked about at the 12 FAR working group is that incremental increases of from 12 to 18 FAR have a higher percentage of affordability. Is this an opportunity for us to ask for, instead of 30% affordability, have maybe a 35% or 40%, because the incremental increase from 12 to 18 has higher affordability percentages? Is this an opportunity to bring?
Maybe, Roberta?
No, we can always ask for it.
Exactly.
I'm sort of skeptical that, but like, sure.
Well, it's interesting. We have a mechanism here to make that ask. It's a special zoning district. So we can say, map it as R12, except in Hudson Yards, where R12 shall require 35%. I mean, remember, this is an area that has more land value than most parts of the city that these things are going to get mapped in. It's a whole new world. Stanford?
Yeah, I'm a little bit concerned about like the mix of commercial and residential is probably going to be a little more challenging to build in the first place. So I don't know if
it will like, the projects will continue to actually like pencil out and get built. Like, we can always ask for it,
What is
I
that?
just don't know if that's,
What I understand with it.
I just think
challenge
this
of
is
the
probably, I don't know, I mean, real estate people like tell me if I'm totally wrong about this, but I imagine building a building that is a mix of commercial and residential, and it's gonna be like 2/3 residential or half residential, because 18 FAR residential. It's gonna be a more challenging building, more expensive to build than just building a commercial building or just building a residential building.
Well, no, these sites are large enough, they could be on different footprints on the same site.
It's gonna be 2 different buildings on the same site.
Well, it's not uncommon for large sites for there to be mixed use. I mean, for example, Hudson Yards is a mixed use site.
So is the Deutsche Bank building, which is the
Okay.
Time Warner Center.
Yeah, Time Warner Center is a mixed use.
Commercial, we got
Alright, that makes me feel
residential.
better.
In other words, like, yeah, Time Warner Center has a huge
I thought
commercial
we were
base
gonna
and then
find
there's
build a
residential
building
above.
with like a narrow, like a wide commercial base and then a narrow residential or something.
It would depend what the sites are used for. Site K is planned to have a hotel and a residential building. Both of those require smaller footprints, right? If you want a large commercial building with a trading floor, no, it's not gonna work necessarily, but a lot of that's not what's being built right now. And the demand, having worked with the developers along this corridor for now about 8 or 9, almost 10 years, they are desperately wanting to do residential over commercial. And I've heard that from every property owner through the HYHD bid, that they are really interested and they will move that needle fast.
So since that, I think Paul's suggestion of saying that this may be an opportunity for a higher percentage of affordable, makes a lot of sense.
And I go back, Jody, you know, we first as a board started to push for higher percentage of affordability, standards at 20, and we pushed to 30.
We
Now
did the 30.
And now 30 is the standard.
Yep.
Right? So maybe this is an opportunity to say R11, R12 zones, R11 is in, I don't know, making up numbers now, 35% affordability, and R12 zones are 40% affordability. That's reversing it, but you know, like the notion of like, let's push the envelope a little bit. This is the sort of zone where we maybe push the envelope and then maybe set some
Not in
precedent.
community before, I've never been shy about trying to move precedent that benefits a community as opposed to development community. And the truth is, we were told we would never, ever get 30% affordability.
Right, yeah.
Like flat out, I sat in a room in 2005, you're out of your mind.
Yeah, and now it's standard.
Well, rent's a lot, market rate rent's a lot more expensive now.
I think.
And that's what makes it possible. And the density here, because the density, no, not many districts in the city go from a FAR of 21.6 to 33. This is a unique spot. And, you know,
I think we're still seeing how the tax exemption works in these market conditions, so maybe it works and we ask for it. It might not work, I would say ask for it, but like,
I'm gonna go one further.
maybe don't die on it.
I think Site K is the model.
So I can make them.
Because maybe how it works is that in other jurisdictions, the title's transferred to the state and leased back to a developer, and they set pilots.
Yes.
And they make it work to make the project work.
Well, if we don't ask, we don't get.
And the other thing is, originally, there was not enough money to pay the Hudson Yards bonds.
Hmm.
The money coming in from the pilots here, pay the bonds and create excess revenue for the city of New York. So that's no longer an issue. Like, this is a opportunity with this public-private land to say, maybe there's a way we can make this work.
Are these private, are these particular sites, like the A5, A4, A3?
Right. Yeah, it's the A3, which is Site K, right?
Yeah, okay.
So maybe we say, that's a model to
You
use.
can push on site.
You, yeah, no, model to use where it's, you take your private land, turn the title over to the state, leases it back to you, and you're not paying the same freight attack. You working, actually, the governor did that in a couple of cases. She took that private land, deeded over to the state, and then figured out a pilot to make the financial
Yes.
thing work.
But most private sites are going to probably, assuming they're inclusionary and not condo, they're going to use 45. Which has specific,
For 85.
45, I'm
I'd say
sorry,
45.
sorry. There's a new tax exemption that replaced 421A that was passed into law last year.
And-
It has like.
And that's very
more
specific,
costs
yeah.
associated with it, partly because of, like, among other things, labor,
Yeah,
but also
right.
other provisions, and so it may be harder to buy affordability with that tax exemption.
Isn't 45 What about the expert?
Yeah.
Well, the replacement is
45.
permanent.
They are permanently affordable.
Yeah, no, but the point is, let's figure out a way to push it further,
Yeah.
because if that doesn't work quite, still gotta use union labor, but we can give you a better rate.
Again, this is a
Yeah, I
blueprint.
guess, yeah, my thing is primarily just about like, I don't want this to be the hill we die on, like, if we can get 30% and that gets something built. Especially because with tax exemptions and with all the other things, like, what is paying for the affordability is the state budget, and that there's a limit to that, like. How.
No, it's not the state budget, it's the tax exemptions are city real estate taxes.
Yeah.
It is,
But you know, here you gave
the
an
bonds are
example
state.
where we said no to something and then the infill and Bayview and in conversation, in negotiation, we had a starting point. We didn't die on anything. We got to.
Yeah, what I find interesting here is that it's so unique on the degree of density. In Sanford, you don't have a 24 FAR floating around. All the time, so.
Okay, where are we?
All right, so let's go ahead.
Okay,
Sorry.
before we-
Yes.
This is the zoning, recommendation.
Yes.
Oh, hasn't the board, didn't we?
We've already said this, yes.
So this has been agreed to by the board already.
It's in the City of Yes letter, we made this recommendation. The only difference is that we've extended to area H2, 34th Street, and we've added the marsh, G1 and G2, the equivalent, I think. But yes, the board is clear.
Clear that.
But Paul's idea of the increased affordability is the one, listen,
That's right.
you gotta see what sticks when you're trying to
Yes,
hit the wall.
the other thing though, that is at least tangible there is not only are we not sure that the tax exemption is going to be as strong as it would have been given the market, is you are pushing on market rents to make those numbers work. And so the market rents are likely going to be higher as a trade-off, and that might be cool for the board, and people might be like, yeah, let's do it. But it's not like zero sum,
No, there is, it's a bunch of factors that come together to make something work.
or it is zero sum.
And that-
It is, not very much.
But I also want to point out that this is, you know, this is a special and unique area. This is not impacting the blocks where by right developments come in and build other rate units. Right, so I think that's
Also,
why
please-
we're pushing a little bit on this area.
And please note, we wrote established very high density cap, same language from the other stuff, right? And let's go to pages 151 and 152, and this is where I think this gives us a lot of ability to say, this is a major win. Please note, under the current plan, bringing it from 6 to 12 FAR, 4,700 units, 1416 affordable. Page down, next page. 17,000 units, 5,200 affordable. You take an existing high density district and allow the 18 FAR to be used in that district for residential, and we create 17,000 units.
Well, everyone says we need housing. We're giving you.
And I wanna say,
Let's
if
go.
we can get all these things done or get them done, please come back and put our height limits back in special zoning districts, because that's the idea, that we want height and locations and preservation of others. Okay,
Looks good to me. Anybody else?
so let's move on, and I will say,
I object.
okay, we have one more, which is a change. Go to page 153, this is a Clinton Special Zoning District. And we talked about this before. This is the current plan, this is the CBS site between 6 and 5/7, 10 to 11th. And it was gonna produce roughly 211 affordable units, because they have to keep the 2 FAR for the CBS studios. Next. The proposal is now for,
Whoa,
There we go.
proposal is now for an 18 FAR.
whoa.
We can go back to that slide with CBS. Yeah, that's it. Okay. Again, we must keep the 2 FAR for CBS, obviously, but if it's an 18 FAR, very different building, and we've also learned they've acquired the rest of the block. They originally did not own the 10th Avenue frontage, now they do. So we're talking a full city block, 200 by 800. It's a huge 16,000 square foot site. And this is a great location to the one user for high density zoning. And this would now produce 839 affordable units, up from 211.
And how many other units?
I had that in it. We'll get to that when we get to the table at the end.
All right, but I think we were talking about like when we're talking about
Oh, we will,
specific
yes.
buildings to try and include all the information.
I wasn't
on
able
the
to
page.
do it
Yeah, yeah, all
tonight.
right, just talking about money, you know.
You know, it'll be, I think that makes perfect sense on every single page. Page down, please.
So we want an 18 FAR?
That's what is being proposed.
I understand that, but that's not what we would want.
Okay, go back to the slide.
Right, Paul, in other words, they're coming, everything's gonna be 18 now.
Well, that's why I think this conversation is, like, I would almost want to see this on a whole map of the district.
Yeah.
I'm
Right.
I'm coming to that.
Okay, yeah,
I've done that.
I think that, because I think that this is one where I may think 18 may or may not work here. And I don't know, Joe, I don't remember if I did go through this all already, I have notes. The next site that we're talking to Richard Bass about, that's north of this. is
Well, yes,
that-
what else is this? I said,
And that's 16, he's proposing, like, whatever they're proposing, so.
I mean,
how's it contextualized?
listen, we can look at this, right? One of the issues here is another encumbrance. The 2 FAR or CBS.
Correct.
So it's not 18 residential.
It's 16 residential.
Right, it still is a huge site, but it is on a wide street and avenues, like that's the place you want. That's it happen.
It's-
So,
it's actually-
are they asking for article, could we maybe recommend this in R11?
Of course,
It's 15 FAR residential.
Right.
And
because right, because it puts it's the whole balance back and forth of what to do.
so maybe we recommend on this one that's in R11 instead of in R12.
Yeah, it can be 15 FAR.
And that's still gonna give us a good number of houses.
Oh, yeah.
And it's-
We're gonna increase it.
Total of 15 FARs, that would be
Yes.
13 residential.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And by the way, they may use less than 2 FAR too.
Right.
We're just like sort of guesstimating, but that's,
So we're suggesting changing this.
because one is used, Katie, they may relocate entirely as this.
Yeah.
We don't know.
I thought I heard that this is fine, but.
Yeah,
CBS
if-
is relocated.
But if, yeah, because if they're, yeah, so if it's an R11 and CBS vacates the entire space, we have a 15 FAR residential.
Predominantly farm residential, is somewhere around.
Whereas it's 13 residential FAR if CBS stays.
Yes, but I guess what is the justification for going from an R12 to an R11 if that's?
Because we're already excited for
Well,
proposed
because-
R16, right?
Currently, it's an N15,
Yes.
And
which is a.
No, no, I was
Yeah, but
saying.
why not? But your
Posted on
your
the
question,
slide.
I was just trying to.
your question is why not an
Discussion.
R12 versus an R11? And I think that the notion of contextualizing as we talked a lot about how Hudson Yards, we taper towards Chelsea and into Hell's Kitchen. Well, we're going to be now wanting to talk about how do we taper from Hell's Kitchen uphill, right? So this contextually as an R11 might make more sense since it's so close to the Clinton Preservation District. And so that contextual, that movement up. So instead of saying to them, keep it at an R, whatever it is now, 10, we say, yeah, well, let's bump it up some, but let's not put it to the maximum, because the maximum stuff is in the high density zones. The R12s are Hudson Yards, Hudson Boulevard, along those areas, which we all said, yes, that makes sense for R12. But let's taper down a little bit on the areas that are more impacted at Clinton Preservation District.
And in consideration
That
also,
R11 seems like a better number than an R12.
that the development to the north proposed an R10. The city planning said, go to an 18.
Well, that was my question was I thought that this was going to be an 18, like not this site, but the one.
No. We cannot make the new max the floor.
I know, I understand. I just like, is there a proposal at this site?
There
Or
is-
just the one to the north?
No, there are 2 finalists from an RFP that was put out by CBS.
Okay.
And one approached the board and talked very informally saying, here's where they were thinking of going. We had a briefing and we spoke back. to them.
But just to contextualize this a little bit, I'm sorry for those people online that can't see, but this, and this are all now being.
Oh.
Oh, yeah,
Save
maybe use the pointer, so
Where's my
this,
folder?
this and this are all
Say
now
this,
being
this.
proposed for higher density housing.
Right.
That is going to have, wait, if all of that.
Oh,
was-
the one on Wixford North is not 18, it's below 18.
That's, isn't that R11?
I think so, yeah.
I thought the one
Either way, there's a lot of
Was
development.
an R10, or it was.
No, it's 11.
Okay.
11, and they're negotiating what to do with the city council.
So it sounds like you're saying the other buildings are R11, let's just make this one R11, basically.
I would suggest that all of them are R11 for contextual to the neighborhood.
Gotcha.
And not R12, because R12, Roberta, we're designating R12s and we're designating R11s rather than then having to say, put R12s here.
I appreciate where you're coming from. I like would express the concern about this site as to whether it might be appropriate for like a higher density, but I also understand that that's probably a losing argument in this room, so
No, I'm not saying one thing, though, is that it's not the argument in this room, it's about us as a group maintaining consensus on the 17 objectives we're trying to figure out at the same time. And one of the things is, again, I know, you don't have a lot of community boards coming saying, please map R12.
Why.
And therefore, balance.
Compromise, I don't agree, but I appreciate where they're.
Right, but then I wanna say, when we actually come to an action, you'll vote in favor, it's compromise that we vote for, but yes, gotta say it.
Yeah, I mean, I would just echo that I think this could be a place where, like, between 10th and 11th is a location where the full R12 could make sense. I think that probably the way to do that would be to be very explicit about, like, we want a step down towards 10th and we want to step up towards 11th. So could probably like make it more feel significantly more contextual if it was designed in the right way, and we could be very explicit about that in our.
I mean, stepping out north and south rather than east and west.
No, he said
Tenth
that.
is shorter, right? And
Yeah,
it goes
like
up towards
towards
11.
But
Yes.
here's the thing, is
That
we
is
haven't
fair.
been that specific on any part of the
Anyplace
plan.
else, yeah.
Yeah, that's the conversation. that we
Yeah, I
had.
mean, I think we should, if that's what we want from developers, we want them to build between 10th and 11th, they want to be higher towards 11 and.
But that's at the
lower
next
towards 10.
stage, this is a plan, that's a little more of like what happens.
Yeah, I'm just mentioning that in the context of the R11 versus R12 is like, what would make R12 fit better potentially would be.
So maybe
But that's
we're
like that.
specifically putting in this, the rationale that Paul is outlining.
Yeah.
We are proposing the R11 as it contextually fits within the potential other developments in the area.
And what truly annoys me in the process is the developer to the north, financially, no problem, can develop their site at R10. And they were directed by city planning to go to R12. And that to me makes no sense whatsoever. It's sort of like they come with something that they want to do in a way that produces, and they get directed because there is a current flavor of policy initiative as opposed to let's proceed and move ahead. So therefore, let's hit somewhere in the middle and compromise, because every time we do this, we don't want to be in opposition. We want to lead.
And I want to echo Joe's point that the maximum shouldn't be the baseline.
That's right.
Right, and so we are in favor, that we just saw a plan that produces 17,000 new housing units. It's not like we're saying no to housing. But to strategically plan where the density growth occurs and not just say because this site actually physically would work for an R12, doesn't mean it makes sense planning wise in the context of the neighborhood. And that's why I'm coming to say, let's have less density in these sites, more density at those sites, and have a thought process connected to it.
Did anyone
not
today
side by side.
get a survey request that was beyond peculiar? I got a
On the phone from-
housing survey request via text message, and here was one of the questions. Do you believe that it is more important to build housing, or to preserve charm and character of neighborhood and maintain environmental regulations? A or B? That was one of the questions. I was like,
Are you polled? Say polled?
this was a,
Yes, okay, so you're being polled likely by a political candidate or a messenger.
no, it asked other questions like, do you like these elected officials?
Yes,
But the poll.
yeah, you were polled.
But it was like, I know, but I'm like, right, let me see, am I choosing between environmental and community character or housing? That is.
Okay, let's stay on task.
I did not, I just.
9:37.
Okay, we're going good, we're in the home stretch, so let's go to page 157. I'm sorry,
Then I have a series of questions from when I.
right, page 157, so this version of page 157 is current, right? 8,000 units, 24-22 affordable. Next page. With those increases, 9,300 units. Now, if we move this R11, it'll go down somewhat, but still, this is still another huge bump of units here.
That's total units, and then the 2,800 is the affordable,
Yes,
right?
exactly, yeah. And now we'll track slide by slide, so we know how that builds. So this is the summary of our zoning and text amendments, and let's go to page 159. And I put a section in proposed VHD very high density areas. And the map, Paul, next. That tells you everything there. What we'll do, Paul, is do some color coding, so it shows, there's what it is, right? Next. Here we go. That's the CBS site and the Wickliffe North sites. And next, this map's not built out properly. That's the no,
Site it says.
the Pearl site, yeah, Pearl site. So I think we got to the very end. Let's skip to page 160. And the numbers have gone up dramatically with the very high density. And when you put everything we've done versus what's proposed, we're talking about 19,000 apartments, of which 6,700 would be affordable.
And this is gonna change a little bit now,
That's
based on
right.
what we've
Like,
said.
it's gonna be tweaked, but
Uh,
it's in the same. The ballpark's the same.
That is like an upper bound. It is not like these will absolutely.
Of course, everything,
be
yeah.
constructed.
Right. However, a big chunk of these have been constructed.
Maybe.
So I think, if you look at, what's happened to date, the first two lines, 9652 and 788, that's an immense amount of housing production, right? And then we're just continuing, like public review, 384, that's happening. These are things that are really actually happening right now. So it's a huge amount of production. We should be very proud of ourselves as a community to figure out this crazy balance. Let's go around the table.
Actually, hold on, sorry, but there's a category in our thing that we don't have up there, right? Because there's the
What thing?
under construction, there's the completed public review,
Mhm.
and then there's the, like,
Pipelines.
the stalled stuff.
No, they're not all stalled.
No, but I'm saying that there is a category, I guess. Maybe you're saying it's not included in any of the numbers, like we.
No, if they're stalled, they're included because they have completed a step. If we can't take them
That
out,
was where we wanted to add the extra lines under completed public review, but they're not doing it.
like we want to give them
Yeah,
status.
That's
So I guess I'm just wondering why we're including them in these numbers if we know that.
Because things that have gotten stalled, like the MTA site and DEP site,
Yeah,
got
finally,
unstalled.
they're finally being built.
Yeah,
Those were stalled for
I
like.
guess we could
8
call them
years.
unlikely.
Well, no,
No,
DEP and MTA were in the same category and they're in construction.
Yes, all right.
Also, why put those vibes out into the universe?
Really? I'm like, hey, that cup is more than half full today.
I don't mean to be rude.
All right.
No, it's right.
Manifest the housing you wish to see in the world.
let's start with people online.
Okay, let's go to people online and let's get some final comments on this, starting with Marty DeCock.
Thank you for all this hard work.
You're welcome. Anything else?
In general, I'm loving it.
Okay. Let's go to Rachel Lee.
I appreciate everyone trying to kind of toe the balance between community concerns and kind of our, like ongoing concerns about our neighborhood, like preserving our character, but also like the affordable housing needs. So it's a difficult, tricky situation, but I think our discussion was very enlightening and I think we did our best.
Travis.
I'll just echo Rachel's points. I agree that it was a lot of hard work today, and the balance was great. And there's still more work to be done, as I still have my skin is still crawling over that one big project. Well, not project, concept.
Carrie.
Echo the thank yous. it's an incredible amount of work, and I think that, you know, we continue to use this for so many things we do on the board. Are we at the end, Joe?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so the only thing I would say is that, just to reiterate what was said up front, which I think would be super helpful, I just, as I went through more and more and more, to have those slides that or those bars that show the number of total units versus the number of affordable units for each, you know, each proposition.
And I think, you know, I want to say that this is the work we did tonight. I thought we'd read this to our May meeting. No, it's got to go to our June meeting. Let's come back, send it out, people look at
I
it.
think it's gonna go to land use. Let me.
No, I
had
said,
that in my notes. so let me-
no, Paul, what I said is to the full board meeting in June, because we need more time for committees and other folks to weigh in on it. That's what I meant. I thought we could get to the May. There's a lot of, this conversation was really robust and solid, so.
So let's wrap it up.
Yeah, so Dolores. Go ahead, Dolores.
Looks good as always.
Okay, Paul,
Good to go, thanks y'all.
Paul, other Paul.
All right, so
Oh.
I have a long list because I did read through, so I'm glad I'm not going last because I want to wrap up. But I just noticed on this one, should we revisit the 165% AMI sites? Because we know we're not getting approvals for those income bands, and there's always the gap between 125 and 165, and we always advocate for not having gaps. So should we just revisit some of those sites?
Yeah, I would say for ones that are planned, let's go to 130, because that's the current flavor. That makes
But even
sense.
on the ones that say the ESD or.
Well, no, so, well, you know, anything that is not built, Paul, yes,
Move those back.
right,
Okay.
right, makes sense.
Anything that's not built, like how much higher they're gonna go, like than 100 is a big open question. Because the tax exemption, you hit the ceiling at 100. They might decide to add additional units at a higher AMI, but you're not necessarily going to get anything above.
I think we ask for the one, we go,
130s, but
Yeah,
not one.
exactly, because, yeah. It's good, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I noticed that Western Milliards itself is not part of this, and we had the long fight about 5,700 units versus the 1,500 units. So that 4,000 more units, they could be built at Western Milliards if the current 2009 plan is approved. It's an additional 4,000 or.
Well, no, because 2009 plan is approved, if it's not modified.
If it's not modified, so that 4,000 units,
Add WRY.
add WRY.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And we had a long conversation with.
We do that,
We had a long conversation with cumulative triggers, so I'm not going to go back to that one. Couple of things that have come up with City of Gas is the kind of the protection of the special districts, notably Clinton. In the housing plan, should we start to have conversations about more protections for that district, such as design standards and or increasing density in the perimeter zone versus the preservation?
I would defer that to the next go.
Okay.
There's so much on the table, right?
There is, yeah, no, I get you. And then, the final thing, and I also would then, in the next zone, do, in historic districts, we often talk about capping FAR so that those sites can't ever actually be built up by instituting new language in the zoning that is not in this administration, but in.
That definitely is the next go also.
And then the final thing is, could we get a list of sort of a summary of the proposed, like we went through and there were green highlighted sections, a list of these, the 10 proposed changes we want to make.
I raised one to Jesse today, we've done this before, we do a whole list, that list by page for section, what changed.
But
Yes.
Liz, here are the changes.
Yes, correct.
So it's
That's
not, because no one's gonna read.
No, we did that,
Yeah.
and that's what we adopted, to adopt the document with changes.
Right.
Because it's already, yeah. we got
And
it.
then from that specifically, what would be the conversations for Hell's Kitchen land use, specifically for Chelsea land use? For those committees to have those conversations unique to those districts to then bring back to this committee.
What I would say is it's important on the zoning text amendment portions for both committees, Chelsea land use and Hell's Kitchen land use, to consider that in the month of April. Or May, sorry, May.
Okay, well, yeah, okay, that's why I was also pushing back, this might go into July.
This is gonna go to June because we gotta get this marker in the ground Because if one more developer comes with an 18 FAR, that's a place we don't want, we wanna go to the places we want.
Yeah.
And then the final note is, and I think you said you're gonna do it, is just a district-wide map where those proposed changes are and to support the law.
Yes, it'll be consolidating that in a different way, I guess.
That
That was my
first
first
thing. But to consolidate, to address Roberta's concern about why not have R 12 on this site, but because we are.
You want rationale in the discussion.
The higher density areas, so those, thank you.
We're gonna have that, we're gonna have a section on very high density that just describes rationale in general, because that's the way to do it. Otherwise, it's like, you're pulling out of the air.
I was going to recommend adding that to the narrative on very high density, that the steps down and all of these are selected on an XYZ basis and having that be a portion of the narrative overall, and then you'll obviously.
VHD areas, why selected? What's fascinating is like, we're doing planning.
Because the Department of Planning isn't.
Correct.
That's right.
Sanford.
Thank you.
So yeah, like Bill said, very, very detailed, very impressive. Can't read all 150 pages, but I read enough to be like, wow, this is, to be impressed. I do have one, maybe just throw in a random comment that I don't think we're gonna take up tonight, but just wanna toss this idea out there. One thing I did see is on the, between 11th and 12th, on the 53rd to 42nd, we're requiring preservation of two FAR of industrial. In my opinion, we should look at taking out that requirement for a couple of reasons. One is just to increase the odds that people actually take up the offer and do it. Does that have constraints to the site, significant constraints? I imagine those are probably less profitable. But you know, when it's like these individual sites, like it's very already negotiated with the developer, like developer wants to do it. But if we have, you know, a whole area, and we want just more of the sites within that area, within an area rezoning to be taken up and actually redeveloped as housing. I think removing that requirement would make it significantly more desirable. The other piece is that what exists there today is these auto dealerships primarily. It's not like whatever the original intention was, like garment manufacturing or light manufacturing. Is like original when it was zoned decades ago. They may have changed, but back in the day, like, you know, he's not really located there, and I think like I don't even know if we want that there.
So let me just note, that was never our board's position. Our board's position was to have the entire area rezoned to residential use. That 2 FAR is a response to the Department of City Planning entirely stating that the area needed to be maintained for industrial support for Midtown Manhattan. So I would recommend, that's a good catch, first of all, we reduce the FAR from 2 to 1, because we still have folks in city planning who believe that that area is crucial for industrial use. I find it bizarre, Stanford, and I am sitting in a room and I agree with you 100%.
And we should take that up in land use.
Warehouses, I believe, aren't considered as a city, but auto dealerships.
It's not, actually, there's much more than auto dealerships there. There's all kinds of very weird, there's plumbers and there's electricians and things like this. But can
Land
I,
use.
yeah, can I put that to land use, Paul?
And JD.
On JD, Paul.
No, absolutely not.
All right, Pete, final thoughts. We're getting in the stretch here. We're getting it.
Balancing the contextual and as well as the affordability issue and the height is a very difficult one. We've been through this before, and that I think we're heading in the right direction by setting up the plan the way we are.
Yeah, thank you for the work. Thanks for listening to each other and good discussion. Any committee meeting that brings in Star Trek.
I know that they are.
I just have a couple of questions from slide 2 to 160, but I'm joking.
Thank God for sense of humor.
Come on. Anyone who thought it was serious, I don't know. maybe some- Next steps, I presume is gonna go to the 2 committees. But also one more version of this.
Oh, no,
Come back here.
there's gonna be a whole, like, picking up all my notes, Maria's notes, sending it out again.
And if anybody's helping out, I don't know whether it was JD's idea or whatever.
Willing.
I'm sorry?
I said you're willing. Help her.
I'm very interested in Kevin taking up the responsibility for the narrative portions, because that would be
Let's talk about
greatly helpful.
Public services and public health,
You got it.
so, but let's
Yeah.
talk. All right, thank you.
Hey,
Yeah, I think this has been super helpful and I look forward to the next iteration and I'm happy to help with the narrative.
Okay, so can you, that'd be great. Can you and Kevin work certainly in the narrative on the whole environmental impact side of things? That's a great thing to look at.
Parks, everything.
All right, yeah, all the stuff.
Can we draft
Yes,
something new for their?
because it doesn't exist, doesn't exist. For
The cumulative.
the cumulative impact, yeah.
The whole discussion there.
Yes, yes. Which will be on YouTube, you can look at it, see yourself.
I don't know about that.
Appreciative of all, yeah, that one in here, I think I've said plenty this evening. And just very open to figuring out how to help with it. Particularly on things that relate to like affordable housing and maybe potentially even threading some of the needle on the very high density as well.
So could you first
Yes.
definitely take that whole 5% thing, I don't know what that's about at all, because we have, there, by the way, it's another 5 or 6 of them in capture.
Yeah,
And then, I think that's a good idea. We work together on the high density section.
happy to assist in any way I can.
John, then,
3 quick things. One minor thing, Joe, and your legal demolition next steps. We did talk about a figure for DOB.
The letter that we sent out at the last board meeting asking DOB to insert that figure.
so let's incorporate the ask from that letter.
Secondly, for Joe, as overall, this is about creating and preserving.
Correct.
So let's emphasize that preserving and in the charts. I don't know if we have it, but the number of affordable apartments we may lose. The number of affordable apartments that are threatened.
I don't know if we can quantify that, but I know we can do.
We did, Matthew start drawing up a chart of all
Right.
all the apartments.
Right, what we didn't do is put the numbers that we saw presented at the land use committee next to those maps.
Okay.
The maps of demolition protections.
Yeah, let's,
And that's the moment that I think, when we get that final number from Plymouth Special, which I'm sensing could be over 8,000.
yeah, let's,
That's a significant number of units to preserve, right?
yeah. Get that in.
Really, you know,
Can I just add on to
Paul.
JD, because I'm surprised you didn't bring up JD, is that one of the discussions we had about the city of Yes housing opportunity was the impact on something like the special event district. In that if the forcing out people to be able to rebuild higher buildings. And I don't know if there's a way that we can show a calculus that like, if somebody has to vacate to build more, that we're losing.
You can add a line in the section where you're talking about preservation.
that goes in the narrative.
We've long been concerned about illegal demolition, but we're also concerned about unintended consequences of changes to zoning that may incentivize further gentrification.
That's a strong point of yours, JD. That's
Well,
why.
4th and 5th floors.
The fourth and fifth floor, your penthouses are gonna be pushed out.
Maybe you'll get an elevator then.
Hey, When I bring it to that,
We don't need to have.
when I bring it to that site, you'll talk about it.
Maria?
Chris, you have a lift there.
Well, normally I am in bed right now.
He's going like, yes.
Basically, I know this took a lot of work and I think it makes it better every time we have feedback and we hear from you all. And I think this is just a really good document. The other thing is, for me personally, the only thing I feel a little disappointed about is just when I look at the total number of units created in the district and then the total number of affordable or permanently affordable units and the vast difference. That's the only thing that disappoints me a little bit, and I would just like us to be advocating for more higher percentage on every project that comes before us. And I think we are the coolest housing, health and human services committee in Manhattan. And we've had other people come to us just to speak to us and get suggestions or advice on how to do things in their own district.
We had 2 meetings this year with other community boards asking how to do affordable housing.
I've sent this letter to other boards.
So I think, and the thing that I think is remarkable, I'm sorry, Dolores, but I think the thing that I think is remarkable is that if you look at the, Roberta, what's the language, the district, the budget, the statement of district. Thank you.
The one thing almost every board has in Manhattan, if you look at their 3 top priorities, is affordable housing, right? And this is how you advocate for what you want in your community and how you can get it done.
As opposed to say something in general.
Right, and I think this is how we are being proactive and saying this is what we want, and I think the discussions here are healthy, even if we're like, Roberta, explain that more to me, I need to understand. But I think it's useful, it's helpful, we need it.
Joe, we are not voting tonight on this because we are gonna have
We're gonna
other.
vote this in our May meeting, and we'll figure out how we reconcile the timing in May, because the committee meet at different times.
And Rachel and Travis, if you guys wanna say any last thoughts, I don't know if we.
This one-
You mentioned
already.
already.
We went to you already?
Yes.
Okay, see,
So I just wanted to say, I want to thank everybody, because we had one of the best back and forth discussions we've had about something like this in over a couple of years. Really appreciate it, and it's really solid. Thank you all. So moved.
Now he gets the pass.
And thanks for the cookies.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.